But I remember one time that you weren't speaking. And I tried to get you to talk. Because it's important not to hold in those things. And to express it at least to someone. You remember I took you on a trip?
Yeah, I think that's a classic of showing how much you cared. You did care a lot, but I didn't know how to share with you since you didn't go through the system and you didn't understand that it's a normal thing in yeshiva to get kicked out. Okay, so I'm assuming that you can hear me well. Today, so I want to say the words, welcome to What a Pod. But what I really want to say is, Shechiyuni v'kimuni v'giyuni lazman hazeh. This is a long time in the making. I always wanted to do a podcast. What a day was, Baruch Hashem, something that came on that idea. And now finally we get to sit down with meaningful people to me, personal, meaningful people that have been inspiration in my life. And starting this whole thing it's for me a big kuved and groises rakshus. How would you say groises rakshus in English?
Very exciting.
Very exciting and very emotional here. It's Sunday morning, Rosh Chodesh Kislev. I couldn't stop thinking about it all Shabbos. I'm happy and excited to introduce my one and only Teire Heilige Chushevet father. It's a big schiz for me to sit together with him on a one-on-one. Because there's so much that I can introduce about him, I'd rather just dive in and see where it takes us. Mi'etz Hashem. So, Shulam Aleichem Tati.
Shalom Aleichem.
Thank you for coming to the podcast. How should we start?
Can I give you a hug?
You can give me a hug, but it's going to be cut out of the camera because the camera's not that tall.
It's such a tremendous chis from Hashem to have this opportunity. That a father should talk out with his son everything that was going on for the father when the son was growing up. Because in order for the son to understand what the father was going through, he would have to be a father himself. So Baruch Hashem, now you're a father yourself. But what happens is, we usually don't get the time or the chance, the opportunity to sit down as adults and discuss everything that went on when the child was growing up.
Right.
So I consider tremendous chis from Hashem. Thank you, Hashem.
Thank you, Hashem. Not only on that, you were zoiche, we were zoiche to have a big simcha in the family. You just married off your youngest daughter 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was zoiche to be in Eretz Yisrael. We just came back together.
We're just a week and a half after the Sheva Bruchas.
Yeah.
Hashem, I really feel muli hoidu to Hashem.
How does it feel?
Marrying off the youngest child, hoidu. And Mommy was feeling that way also. Mommy, she just told me last week, she teaches Kalas, mamas of Chassanim for over 10 years. And she told me last week that she feels she can make a new series of 12 shiurim just on how to marry off a youngest child.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. I don't think the audience understands how big of a deal for you marrying off the youngest child, if I may say, how many we have, Baruch Hashem?
8.
8, Baruch Hashem.
Yeah.
And how big of a deal it is where you coming from all by yourself. You're Ben Yuchid, you don't have brothers and sisters, and you came to Israel. I think we should start with your story all the way from the beginning.
Okay, I'll just finish up about
the chasana.
The chasana.
Okay, go ahead.
I think everyone understands that if you can marry off 8 children in Eretz Yisrael, like the Olam says,
right?
There's no way of explaining it.
Yeah.
So we were just full of haidua. We actually designated one of the Sheva Bruchas that it should be not only Sheva Bruchas V'Chus and Kal, it should be a Sidus haidua for us that we were zocheh to marry off our youngest child.
Wow. Yeah, it was definitely a big Sidus haidua. We were dancing away as if there was another chasana going on.
And I said over there at the Sidus haidua, because we had people, we're sitting there, we're being happy that we're zocheh to come to this moment. But the other people who are going through their difficulties, how can I sit there and be happy? So I said this word, a nice word. It says in Mishnayos and Bruchas, Noisen hodu ala uver, you thank for the past, v'tzoik ala uver. But you also yell about the future, like Hashem should save us in the future. And the question is, why? I can't just thank for the past? I have to yell about the future? What's the pshat? So I said that when I sit and make a siddur hadu, it's not only about me sitting in a beautiful hall, nice music, good food, and I'm thanking right now. I'm really thanking on all the difficulty that it took in order to get to this place that I'm holding right now. That Baruch Hashem who took me through all of that. So, Hodu ala uva, but it is be'etzim a tzakalu u'saluvay, because it shows that Hashem could take us out of everything. Obviously, to marry off 8 children, it wasn't always almei menichas. The world, ups and downs. Everyone in the world, galgal choyze ba'olam.
So you're saying thanking for the hard moments?
I'm thanking that Hashem took me through even those hard moments. So I said to all the people sitting there, it doesn't make a difference where you're holding. It's all the same thing. I'm happy right now, so I'm thanking to Hashem. But if you're going through a difficulty, or you know what? It could even be I'm going through a difficulty. Maybe I have a schwerkeit now that I'm not telling you. But I'm right now focusing on the Haidua. I'm going to thank Hashem for bringing me in the circle, to the top of the circle in this area. But I'm thanking for all the difficult times that He took me through. And that's chizik for you if you're in a difficult time.
Why do we always need difficult times? Why does it have to be that way? There's no smooth sailing. Just let me live life. I mean, I don't know if real youngsters can understand this, but there's always challenges in life. I think when I was very young, I always thought, okay, now it's hard, but if I'll only get married and if I'll only have a car and if I only have that, everything's going to be smooth. And throughout life, you figure out that there's always going to be a challenge, and some challenges are very big. But why every good thing has to come through such a hard challenge?
So you know that we learned something last week. Maybe I'll share it over here.
Yeah.
That we had this kasha, that Avram Avinu built such a beautiful relationship with Hashem, and then comes at the end of Parshas Vayera, V'Hashem v'Elokim nisu es Avram. How does that make sense? He just gave up his whole life. He left his family. He went. He did everything that Hashem wanted. Why would Hashem, who's the closest person to him, give him a nisayon? It's like very difficult to understand.
And what kind of nisayon? The worst nisayon possible.
Yeah.
And 2 hours later, we in Shil, and I opened the Chok, which I try to learn every day, Baruch Hashem. And in the Zohar Kodesh, it says the exact same word that you told me on the way from
the Zohar Kodesh? It says Hashem knew that Avram Avinu could withstand the test. He only made him the test in order that it should come out what he has in his heart should actually come out. People should see it.
So if I may say that Hashem knows that we can, He's only going to give us a test that He knows we can bystand.
Yes, and you know it says that in Chazal, right?
So, okay, that's a little comforting that He doesn't throw us off into the ocean. He makes sure to give us something that we can handle.
100%. But now get to the point. What's the point of the Nisayon?
What is the point?
The point of the Nisayon is just to bring out what He knows already in your heart, you should be able to show in the world.
So He needs people to see who I am?
Not needs, but if you go a little deeper, this world is the level of Malchus, revelation. You have to reveal what's hidden. That's what it's all about. We're in a hidden world. We want to reveal what's inside. So Hashem wants you to reveal what's in your heart. So watch this. If you start to view the world like this, it's not that Hashem hates you or wants to punish you or knock you down. It's just Hashem gives you His sign because He's saying, I know already what's in your heart. I just want you to show everyone what's really there.
Wow.
Then life becomes a different place.
But sometimes it comes through horrible challenges.
Yeah. But what does that mean? That means that He knows that that's where you're holding. That you can actually do it.
That
He knows your connection in your heart. Otherwise, He would never give you such a challenge. He's not giving you a challenge just to fail.
That's what we say. You have great faith in me. You gave me another day. I'm gonna live up to it. I'm gonna prove you that you were right.
Like we say, maybe He believes in us more than we believe in us.
Yeah, for sure. He knows more of our potential, but the way for us to figure out our potential is seeing the challenges.
Yeah.
It's a little deep, but this is work that we've been through. And one more thing, if I may say, this podcast is to reveal to the people what is in our hearts. And my heart, it's been throughout a long time. If I may say, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, it wasn't so popular to talk about your relationship with Hashem. Daven and Lenin today, you have, I'm just going to mention 2 names. I hope I don't insult anyone, but Shmili Ungar talks publicly about not speaking Yishil. I wouldn't say it's a style, but it's a normal thing to speak openly about thanking Hashem and being close to Hashem. And it is deep in my heart, and I really want to get that part out because I am Hasidish Bells by choice, and I want to be here, and it's good. I figured out, it took me time, but I figured out how good it is for me and how blessed I am to be here and show the beauty of Judaism. And I think a lot of Bucham and Ingalat can use a boost in that area. So this is this podcast. This is meant to be meaningful and eye-opening and understanding a little more about living as a Yid and putting some light into the world. We were supposed to start your history and where you grew up, and we went into this full Dvar Torah
But
thing.
I have something to say before we start.
Please go.
I'm very proud of you.
Thank you so much.
I'm very proud of you because most of your listeners know you from the last year and a half. What a day. Interviews, write-ups. But I know you a little longer. And I know that in order to get to this place that you are today, you had to go through quite a bit. And it wasn't so easy.
I appreciate it.
But you kept on going. And you kept on pushing. And you're using your koiches for the Tov of Klal Yisrael to benefit others. It's amazing. It's amazing. Especially now you're starting this Water Pod, which is the idea you're saying you want to bring interviews of people who have deeper insights into life for the Klal. You mamish want to do for the Klal.
Yeah.
I have echte Yiddische Chassidische Nachas von dir.
Thank you so much.
I give you a hug.
Sure.
Okay, so all of that was a good introduction to my story. I know you want me to say my story.
Yes.
You probably heard it over the years. Bits and pieces, I would say in the Shabbos Tish.
Yeah, now is a good opportunity to put it together.
I don't know if you ever heard it like you're going to hear it now, today. So, like many people, my story starts with my parents. So to give you a little history, my father, by the way, my father and mother, both in Olam Emes, should be a schiz for them. I'm telling over this story.
Moshe Mendel Bereb Nuchem and Rivke Bas Ramot Chalaib. Your grandfather was in Ma'ashurim, is that true?
Oh, so my father grew up in Ma'ashurim.
Wow.
He's in Chayda Ma'ashurim. And
people who see you now with your beard, it makes sense. Oh, I came from Ma'ashurim, but they have no idea that you went through.
So he had a Baba, from what I understand, the Baba Surah, that she was one of those women who said Tehillim in Shtiblich Me'ashurim, where if you're over there, so you see like a curtain over there, there's a whole Ezras Nushim, and they're women who say Tehillim most of the hours of the day.
Wow.
So she was such a Baba.
Wow.
And at a certain point, the family moved out of Me'ashurim to the new neighborhood. What was the new neighborhood at that time? Rechavia. So you can imagine what year we're talking about if they bought an apartment in the new neighborhood.
Yeah.
And at a certain point, my father was in Eretz Yisrael during the War of 48. He was there during the War of 56. It was not easy. And he decided after the War of 56 to go to America to find a job and find a shidduch. Now, just as an additional point, I know when I learned with Talmidim about difficulty that people have in life, you don't judge. People went through the Holocaust. Even if you could say all types of ashkufa, why and what Hashem wanted from us, you can't judge. You can never tell it to a person who actually went through such terrible things. You can't tell him the ashkufa because his experience that he had on his flesh is much far beyond whatever we'll be able to. We can sit, Baruch Hashem, Hashem didn't try. We can sit and declare why Hashem wanted to give it to us. But so I can't judge him. I can't say, well, it would have been much better if he would have stayed in Eretz Yisrael. Doesn't come a cheshbon. He decided, and I totally respect it. He told me himself when they were in 48, so people didn't have food. And the British were giving out rations just in order that the family should have food. He told me his sister was standing on line to get rations so the family should have food while bombs were falling in Yerushalayim.
What does that mean? Like a paper, like a ticket?
No, rations means you get a portion, you get a little food for the family.
So
to take home. She had to bring home food for her family, whatever it's milk, eggs, bread, whatever.
According to how many people were at a house?
Yeah, but she had to stand on line while the bombs were falling. Now today we live in Eretz Yisrael. Hashem should save us. They're azakot. But you go into a cheder atum, you go into a sheltered area. Okay,
There's no sheltered area going there.
Hashem doesn't challenge us. At that time, there were bombs falling in Yerushalayim. 56, he told me that he had a chaver, he had a friend, who, Rahman al-Islam, was nifta from something, who was standing almost next to him. So I'm just saying, I can't judge what his decision was.
Yeah.
But he decided at some point that he was going to leave Eretz Yisrael and come to America.
Where did he come to? Where in America?
Came to New York City. I never sat down with him and had this conversation of all the details. I'm just trying to fit together.
Would have been a good idea. It's a good idea in general for any father and son to sit down with two mics.
It's a schiz.
It's a schiz, yeah.
So he came to New York. I assume he had a few chaverim that he had still from Eretz Yisrael, and he went into the Diamond Line on 47th Street. there was a person who had already a business up and running in Diamond Line, and he was the one, or they were the one, the couple was the one who set up the shidduch between my father and my mother.
Okay.
To give a little background about my mother, so she was from Baltimore. Her parents were English. Were from her father was a Minkach. He grew up in Minkach, very chushuv Minkach family, Englander. And his grandfather, the Moshe Yitzchak Englander, was a Meshamish by Minchas Lazer.
Wow.
And but they came early. They were already in America, probably by 1925.
That's very early.
Yeah. So we know at that time there were pockets of Frime Yidden in different cities. So he was in Baltimore.
Mm-hmm.
He was in Baltimore, and they had my mother in 1928. And as she was growing up, okay, she got the Yiddishkeit from the Heim, but when it came time for Shidduchim, there wasn't really much going on in Baltimore. So she needed to go from Baltimore to New York to find the Shidduch. There is Yeshivas Nei Yisrael. Nei Yisrael was just starting then. From what I understand, my grandfather, Oliver Shulam, was very involved in helping Nei Yisrael build, in those days, the Buchrim. Where would they eat? It wasn't so organized like it is today. They ate what's called Teg by Balabatim. So he was one of the Balabatim.
Even in America? I know it's a Michigan.
At the beginning. So he was one of the families that Buchrim would come to. In any case, my mother went when she was of marriageable age. She went to New York, probably around 1957. So the shidduch was made between my father and my mother. But it's interesting, because looking back, I think about it. My father grew up in Meshur. My mother was the daughter of Minkach Chassidim, but she herself grew up totally American. And that was the shidduch. Yeah, interesting. I once found later in life, when I was older already, I went to 47th Street and I looked for those people who made the shidduch, and I found the wife, the wife of the person who owned it. He had already been nifta, the wife of the person who owned the business. I went and I thanked them for making the shidduch.
Really? was that closure for you?
Yeah.
Wow.
That was a big thing, because it didn't work out between my father and my mother. So for me to come to that place, to actually realize, like a lot of people who go through this, it's hard because they think like, well, maybe it could have been this. Maybe my father could have married this person. My mother could have married this person. But bottom line, if they would have married someone else, you wouldn't have been here. So everyone is certainly very happy that whatever took place, Bashkucha took place. So for me to come to that place, to be totally b'shleimus with it, and to thank the Shadchan, that was a big thing for me. Yeah.
What age did it not work out? How old were you?
So I was born probably about 2 years, first child to my father and mother. And that's it. Only child, one son. Probably shortly afterwards, the marriage didn't work out so well. When I was 2.5, my parents got separated. So I don't remember so much from before 2.5, but at the age of 2.5, I have a very clear memory how I walked into the apartment house in Flatbush that we would live in, that I would live in until 18. And my mother was there, and her mother, because her mother at that time was living already alone in Baltimore. So she asked her mother to come up to New York, and that became my family unit. My Baba, Alea Shulam, so she was like the mother. She took care of the house. And my mother was a legal secretary. She made the panusa. That's the way I grew up. So 2.5, I hardly remembered my father from before 2.5, but here's the thing. The first time I saw my father from when they got separated was when I was 4 years old, which means these are very developmental years.
Right.
2, 3, beginning of 4. I didn't see my father. Now, here's what went on for me, and I'll tell you all the things that I'm going to say now, I only realized years later, because as you know, when you go through something, you don't know, especially as a child, you don't realize what's going on. But what was going on for me, a boy naturally wants to have a father to look up to. He's a boy. He wants to be like his father. I was growing up with 2 women in the house. Not to take away from any of the chesed or the gewaltig atmosphere that they gave me. They gave me a very warm atmosphere. I had whatever I needed growing up. It was gewaltig. But there was always something from a very young age very missing for me. I wanted that father figure. And I remember the day that my father first came to see me at 4 years old. I remember my mother, Shon, taking me outside of the apartment building to the sidewalk. And she told me, my father was parked down the block. She said, "That's your father. Those are Tata." And I remember running to him, probably stronger than iron is pulled toward a magnet. I had an indescribable pull toward my tata. I just wanted to be close to him. And that was maybe from the happiest moments of my life at 4 years old. So I remember running up to him, hugging him. And that's a lot of the story of my life. Looking really for that father figure, looking for my tata, because that was what I had until 4.
When you came up to him, did he realize how big this is for you?
So what he did, I didn't give you all the details, but he was outside of the state, and he came back, and he bought me what was at that time from the most technological advanced toys, an electric locomotive set. And the way you did it in those days, you didn't have tracks in a box. You had to build the tracks on a tremendous board, and it stayed stationary. And then the cars were metal. And then you have like a battery pack, and turn it on. A kid said when I saw him first, he was unloading that matuna for me from his car. So you can imagine how much that matuna meant to me. In other words, I don't know how much he knew it meant to me, which is a very important point. But at the same time, he was doing for me what was like the utmost, showing up and bringing me the best present in the world. That was a father for me.
Wow.
So now, afterwards, he started to come every Sunday.
Why didn't he come until then? You were too small?
I
You never
never had
asked
this-
him. So far, you're enjoying this, right? Me too. Do not forget to like, share, subscribe, comment. Most importantly, comment. The comment should be deep insight for this episode. And if you have courage and you want to support us, you want to show us a good, make us feel good, super like. Find out what it is. You can also join as a member. Let's continue the conversation.
I think the reason is when people get separated, there's a certain portion of time until things settle, until things to be worked out. That doesn't have to do with me. That was my hashgucha. In any case, so he started to come Sundays, and I would look forward so much to those Sundays. I just wanted to see him. I just wanted to be close with him.
Wow.
And the rest of the week, I couldn't see him. There's nothing I could do. But I would cherish those moments in my heart. I would dream about it. When can I see my father again? When can I be close to him?
It sounds like a mushel to Knesset Yisrael and the Eibishter.
Mitzvah Shem, I hope we'll get to that.
Wow.
So then, in those days, maybe I'll say, Baruch Hashem, divorce wasn't like it is today. Today, I go it's already a few years. I see a sign on the street over here in America.
$4.99.
Exactly. Divorce $4.99.
I saw
Just
it.
fill out the legal papers. Yeah, I was.
Hashem
We
Yerachem.
live in what's called the disposable generation. So I actually wrote a sefer later on, maybe I'll show you afterwards, Marriage and Me, about tips about how to build shalom bayis. And what I write on the back of the sefer to announce the sefer is, in the disposable generation, don't make your marriage a disposable.
Wow.
Because when you think about it, marriage is really the most valuable commodity that you have.
Yeah.
It's the closest relationship.
Yeah.
Don't make it into a disposable, even though you throw out everything else.
Yeah.
And that's maybe I'll stop here for a second and say, without any judgment, but at the same time, I've had talmidim, I've guided people, I've guided couples already. A lot of times people think, okay, not getting along, okay, move on, go to the next one. If you have children, if you have a child, you cannot imagine what that divorce means for that child if you were never there. I was that child. And therefore, whenever I have these type of cases, I try my best that somehow it should work out between the parents just for the sake of saving that child that I feel is from the greatest Yesidim in the world. Because there's nothing you could do. I loved both my father and my mother, but there's nothing I could do. So that brings us to this point. Divorce at that time took quite a while in the court system. I have to work out something called alimony, visitation hours. It took a lot of time. My parents were separated from the time I was 2.5 till I was 9, close to 7 years.
Wow.
Which means all those years, which are developmental years, 5, 6, 7, 8, I had one ambition in the world, one thing that I wanted the most. All I wanted was that my parents should come back together. That's all I wanted. And even one time, I was zoiche to convince my mother to come down and speak to my father. She came down to the car. I remember them sitting in the two front seats. I was sitting in the back. They spoke for a few minutes. Then they sent me upstairs. And they spoke together for the better part of an hour.
Wow.
And I'm waiting upstairs. And I
No.
remember my mother coming upstairs. And she said, looks like it's not going to work out. And I was crushed. That was my world. But there was nothing I could do.
Was there, do you call that hopeless or helpless?
Yeah, that's what it feels like. If you ask me, it was some of the most difficult times of my life. So here I was, 9 years old. 9 years old. I remember the night when I was going to sleep. My mother came to my bed. She says that she's getting the get. Either she got the get that day or she was getting it the next day. And I remember I was broken. Because until then, I still have a chance. But so I started to live almost like a double life. On Sunday, I would go to visit my father's family. After he came to America, his father was nifta in Eretz Yisrael even before he got married. So his mother was an Almuna. His mother came to America. And then all of his siblings he brought to America. So his whole family was already in America. So Sundays I would go to see his family. The rest of the week I was with my mother and her mother. They didn't have much family because from the English out, most of the family was lost in the Mechuma. So I was like living a double life. During the week, I was with my mother and my grandmother. On Sunday, I was with my father's family. And like I said, I loved them both, but there was no way to get them together. So it was very difficult, just my home life during that time. I had 2 bar mitzvahs.
Really?
Which means the day I put on tefillin, the day I had a Lila Torah, so my father came to the Shil in Flatbush. But as far as celebrations, my mother made me a celebration for our people. My father made me a celebration for his family. 2 bar mitzvahs.
Unfortunately, a lot of kids today can relate to what you're saying. I was involved in doing a campaign for Lev Layelid, which is an organization that helps only B'nai Grishim families that are broken. And they proclaim that the horror that these kids go through is even worse than Yisoimim, because Yisoimim, they don't have tanas on anyone. They don't think if it would have been, of course they think if the parents would still be alive, but they don't have that. They have the nechumah. They have where to go to. They're both in peace. And here, like you said, they're trying to make shulam or trying to run away.
So my reaction to that is, I don't think you can compare people's pains. I can't compare. I can just say, yes, I know that this is from the worst you see them in the world.
Wow.
What another person goes through, I can't say. If I was never there, and each person has their pekel, each person has their journey. But
There is
yes,
a certain comfort.
This is a journey.
There is a certain comfort for someone to see that someone else that went through something similar got somewhere in life. It gives him hope. Because when he's in the dark, when he's in those moments, it feels helpless. And if he sees someone that minute, he says, listen, I also went through a similar thing. Of course, you can't compare. But I also had parents, and so he sees, okay, it's possible to go through
That's
this.
why I hope maybe people will get chizik from this story.
For sure. For sure.
So to continue with my story, because at home I wasn't really happy so much, I looked for an outlet. I needed a place to be happy in. And what satisfied me was my chavayrim at the yeshiva. My chavayrim in the chayda years, I was very good with the chavayrim. And in those years, 9, 10, 11, 12, what came out was my status in the kita. I became the funny one. I was the one who made the jokes.
You made good jokes or survival strategy jokes?
No, good jokes. And it wasn't like putting down people. It was like the Rebbe or teacher would say something, and then I would like sort of chap, like if you add this word to it or you say this, and the ganze kita would laugh.
The Rebbe was mad?
No. I actually had one teacher who said to the whole class, said, Baruch Hashem, that you're in this class, you give chiyas to the whole class.
Oh, wow.
So that was like a shtikla skum. In any case, that was my position. That gave me chizik. So I basically lived, as hard as it was on Sundays and the rest of the week to sort of separate from different parts of family, I sort of lived through what was going on in the kitta. And my chavayrim became almost, I viewed them like brothers.
Mm-hmm.
And I had this position of always trying to make people laugh. I got chizik from trying to make people laugh. There was one yingel in our kitta who was more brilliant type. You know, like the geniusy type that they could read Gemara and Rashi at 8 years old and they remember everything, they understand everything. So he was that type.
Mm-hmm.
So I befriended him. We became good friends at about 10, 11. And we started to do things that were more rochnius than the rest of the kitta. Like we would learn some Gemara even outside of the time of, and we would, we had a Rebbe who taught us a Chassidish sefer, this before Bar Mitzvah. We would go to the Hashkuma minyan. There was one Hashkuma minyan in the neighborhood. We would meet on Shabbos morning to both of us go to the Hashkuma minyan.
Why? Let's say I understand why he did it. Okay, let's say because he understands Gemara fast and he's feeling the rochnisdige part. Why did you join him?
So that's a great question. I obviously felt some sort of connection to him, but I only realized afterwards, looking back, that I started to realize from that I became his chaver, and I was interested in those things that he was doing, that I had two parts to me. I was on one hand the funny kid, but on the other hand, I also had a serious side, who also wanted to learn and find out what is this Yiddishkeit about.
Mm-hmm. It's funny because if you would ask, if anyone would ask me today, what is your father? I would definitely first say he's a very serious guy. I wouldn't say he's the funny one.
I guess that part is the most strongest today.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like to make people happy.
You are making us happy, but in Bells, I would say you're the most serious one.
Thank you.
Around.
In Bells and Dubs aren't serious.
Yeah, that's part of
But you should know, I speak to a lot of Bellzers, excuse me, and the Bellzers can sound ganz freilich auch. And I try to make...
Okay.
Also,
it used to be only here, maybe they have now...
have a note to make people happy.
So you went with this kid to all these secret...
we did things that were more than the rest of the kit. Anyway, Ma'usa Kodesh Baruch. So what Hashem did is in Kita Ches, and again, in the equivalent of Shia Bais in Shiva Ktana, I had a Rebbe who was mamish someone to look up to.
Mm-hmm. What was his name?
His name was Rabbi Avrum Gantzvi, for those who know him from America. He was living in Forest Hills at the time that he was my Rebbe in Flatbush. And what was unique about him is that he was from the Alta Dor, from before the Mechuma. When I saw him the first time, I thought I couldn't relate to him at all. I didn't even know what he was doing, like teaching us. He had a long black coat, a black hat, a gray and white beard. I didn't feel like...
But most of the people in Flatbush did not have a long beard and a black hat.
Correct,
and a black...
Correct.
Okay.
But when he would speak to us in his Yiddish English, in his broken English, he spoke our language. He spoke to us like kids, like where we were holding. And what took place, and I realized this only afterwards, looking back, what took place is that all those feelings in myself that I had for my father, my physical father, that I couldn't find, and remember, I was always looking for a father figure, so it sort of shifted internally to go to a spiritual father. He was our Rebbe in Kitta, and I was alive in the Kitta, and I sort of began to look up to him like my father.
Wow.
Now, it actually says this in the Mishnah.
Right.
The Mishnah in Bob Metzia. If a person finds an Avaydis Uviv, Avaydis Rabbi, Avaydis Mikademis, who do you give back first? Avaydis Uviv, your father, Avaydis Rabbi. And the Mishnah says, you give back to your Rav. Why? Uviv Havil Chayol Lemazei. Your physical father brings you to this world. Rabbi Mavil Chayol Lemabo. So in a certain way, your Rav, who teaches you Torah, is really like a father, but he's more the spiritual type of father. What took place for me is all those feelings that I had, the strong feelings for a father, sort of shifted to sort of be more like him.
There's also Kele Yoldoi.
Yeah.
I told Rebelli Stefanski was complaining that people ask him for bruchas. And I told him, I just was there Friday the 15th. It was 2 weeks ago. And I told him, give me a brucha. He says, show him vatam the bruchas. He doesn't like it. He says, I'm a balabos giving a shir. I'm not a rav. So I told him, the Kili Yoldoi and a father gives bruchas to a kid. So you have talmidim, you have to give them bruchas. He couldn't resist that.
Yeah. So I'll just say a word about this Rav Gansvi, who he was, which is, I only found this out afterwards, but who became. So he himself was from a Chassidish mishpucha. He married into a Rebbish mishpucha, which is interesting. But he was very, very close before the Mechumah to learn the Litvish yeshivas. And he was in the same house as Rav Achunan's yeshiva, when they came to take Rav Achunan's yeshiva in the
Wasserman.
Shaya.
Wow.
So if you read the stories of Rav Achunan's yeshiva, so you know they were in a certain house, and the Nazis, Yamach Shmam, came in there, and they went through the house. There were certain people that they left for whatever reason. There was one Rav Rebbe who was ill, and they left him in bed, and he survived. So the story that I heard about Rav Gansvi is that he was in the same building at the time, hiding in one of the rooms behind the curtain.
Wow.
And when the Nazi came to check that spot, it was next to a window. A gust of wind came down, blew up the curtain, and the Nazi didn't see there was someone behind there.
Wow.
And he was saved.
Wow.
So he was close personally to Rav Achunan. He was in the same house. By the way, if I'm mentioning Rav Achunan already, if you ever read the stories about what took place in the Shoya, so you know that Rav Achunan said to his Talmidim before they gave up their lives al Kiddush Hashem, that they should have in mind that they should be mois and nefesh as kabunas for the Yidden in America.
Really?
That's
At that
written.
time?
So interesting. I'm just
Saying
bringing
what?
it out
Like
for
what?
people who don't know this.
Wait.
That's what Rav Achunan said to his Talmidim before they were niftar.
I want an explanation. Your interpretation.
You know that Rav Achunan went fundraising for his yeshiva. Benovich. He had a yeshiva in Benovich. It was from the Talmidim Mefukim of the Chufetz Chaim. And he went fundraising. So he was in America.
So he
was in London, but at the time that the war broke out, he was actually in England. He wasn't even there. He could have been saved. He came back for his yeshiva.
To do what? To save them or to be with them? Wow.
And then the Ganze Yeshiva, it's interesting. I don't want to get off onto too much of a tangent, but just in terms of the Shoy, if you want to see Hashguchas Hashem, you'll notice how many Gedolim of the next generation, that the generation was built up, was saved during the Mechumah. Gedolim. So I'm not going to count all the names, but the only one, or one of the main ones, from Yavi the Pizatz and Rebbe also, is Unga Kimen, but one of the unique Rosh Yeshivas who was lost was Rav Achunan. Rav Achunan, as different than everyone else, he could have been saved. Because when the war started, he was in London. When he came back to his family, came back to his yeshiva. So all of that being said, I'm saying it's a known thing what he said to his Talmidim before. Let the Neshumas that are in America today think about that sometimes. What the Mesiras Nefesh already took place so that things could come to where they need to come to.
Wow.
In any case, he was there afterwards in America, so he contracted something called tuberculosis. It was a disease going around that unfortunately a lot of survivors got after the war. He contracted that disease. In America, there was one main hospital that gave treatment for that disease. I think it was in Chicago, but it had a waiting list. So you had to wait like a month and a half, 2 months, whatever it was. So he needed a family to take care of him while he was waiting to get into his hospital, I think it was in Chicago. The family that opted and accepted to take care of him was none other than Rav Aaron Kotler and his Rebbetzin. So Rav Gansvi was personally in the home of Rav Aaron Kotler, who took care of him for that month and a half until he got into the hospital in Chicago.
Wow.
The reason is, because if you know, the people who know from Rav Aaron, that he had a daughter who also had tuberculosis after the Mechumah, and she was just getting better, so they knew how to treat it. So he was personally in the house. So this was the Rebbe that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was mazmin for this American boy growing up in Kitaches, and again, Shia Bayis in Yeshiva Ktana. I had him twice.
And that was after he got well already.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
He went to the hospital,
was
right,
before.
of course.
Yeah.
He was cured from tuberculosis.
And then
years later, he was a Rebbe where I was learning, and he became...
So he went through a bissel in his life, and he was your Rebbe, and you looked up to him, and he brought you to Hasidus?
I actually remember one time, he said in front of the Ganze Kita in Yeshiva Ktana, he said, you should be in Ponovich. Now, I didn't even know what Ponovich was.
Uh-huh.
So I think I asked him again for the word Ponovich. I remember writing it down on a piece of paper.
Really?
Ponovich, I should remember what the word means. I didn't know what it meant.
When did you figure out?
But if he says, so obviously when I started to go to Eretz Yisrael afterwards at 18, so I learned what it was.
And
But at that time, I didn't know.
wow.
In any case, so
He was special for you, and he gave you Hasidus?
no,
What did he give
it
you?
was from the Litvische Welt.
Okay, so what did he give you?
So when it came time for 18, all my Chavayim were going to Eretz Yisrael.
Okay.
And I didn't want to go to Eretz Yisrael.
Why?
Because again, I was living with my mother and my grandmother, and I'm an only child. If I leave, who's going to be in the house? So I didn't want to leave them. So I went to one of the branches of Lakewood. At that time was considered like one of the best branches of Lakewood, Yeshivas Philadelphia.
Okay.
Now, it worked out when I went there for Faher. Pink that day, Rav Gansvi had a son who was learning Yeshivas Philadelphia.
Wow.
And the day of my Faher, he came to Philadelphia to visit his son.
Wow.
So I don't know what took place between him and the Rosh Yeshiva. I know he knew the Rosh Yeshiva. But I was accepted to Philadelphia.
Wow. Which was considered a more higher yeshiva,
the
Chusha yeshiva.
Best branch of Lake.
Uh-huh.
So Baruch Hashem, so I had already made up. My friends were going to Eretz Yisrael. Be'ashgucha, they were going to learn the same Gemara that my friends were going to learn Eretz Yisrael. So we made up to write letters. We'll be in touch. There was a young man who was like a sort of madrich for us, who brought us together. It was with Akvitza. He got us very much into learning Bekiyas. We like to learn Blätter of Gemara and Govat. From a shir he gave us on Sunday, just on Sundays, we were Messiah already 2 Gemuras. Achevre. So he came to me during that summer before we became 18, before going to Eretz Yisrael. And he said, you have to go to Chevre to Eretz Yisrael. You can't. I said, no, I'm going to be in America. We made up already. We're going to be in touch.
Because you were protecting your mom the whole time.
Because I don't want to leave them alone.
Like that was the only reason.
It's like my parents, right? It is my parents. Yeah. So then he says, you have to go with them. Now, you're part of the Chevre, you're part of the Chabur, you have to be with them. Then he says, and if you go to Eretz Yisrael, you'll be able to learn all the hashkufas. Now, he might have not realized it, but all of a sudden I heard something else. Because there was something much, much deeper that was taking place for me, and I'll explain it now. And if you understand this, then you can understand already my whole life. But again, I only understood it years later. I told you that my desire for my father, my desire that my parents should come together sort of shifted, and now I became closer to my spiritual father. But something else shifted for me also. I told you that I had this chaver who shifted me a little more to the spiritual side of things. And then when I was 13, 14, 15, I started to hear more hashkufa, what Yiddishkeit is about. And they said the following. They said, you need to know Hashem is your father. You can't always see him. Sometimes you see him, you mamish feel like he's there for you. But other times you don't see him at all. But you cherish the relationship with him in your heart. And you wait for that time that you're going to be able to see him again. And that's the most chushiva thing to you in life.
Who said that?
That was the hashkufa. That, again, it wasn't in such words.
Right.
But that was what I picked up. I'm talking even subconsciously. This is what went on for me. I said to myself, this is my life. This is exactly what I experienced. But it goes even further. Because then I heard, Hashem is like your father. Knesset Yisrael, the Yiddish Neshumas, are like your mother. Hashem at one time got very angry at the mother and sent away the mother and her son from the house.
Wow.
And they were separated.
Wow.
And everything we do in the Gulis is just v'shiv lekad sheshainis, that we should be able to live together in one house.
Wow. Your life story on a tray.
So that's what happened for me. On a deeper level, what happened is that a lot of things that I was going through emotionally shifted, that it should be now, my emotion should come out, an emotional connection with Borei Kol Olam and Borechi, with the Eibishter. An emotional connection to want to see my father and mother come together in the form of Klal Yisrael come together with the Eibishter.
Do you feel like it's getting closer?
I feel like we're in a very big gulis. I feel that today we're very far away. Everyone agrees we're very far away. But if you ask me what my ambition is and what drives me throughout life, it is that. That's all I want to do. I just want to bring them closer. Is there a way to bring them closer? Yes, I believe there is a way to bring them closer.
Is it disappointing to you that we're still here?
Of course.
Are you getting me?
I wouldn't say disappointing. I would say overwhelming. Miyish, I would say not. But
If I may say, what is miyish in English?
Miyish means despair. Despair, we know, is not a Jewish word.
Are you despair?
Right.
Right. We don't want to get despaired ever. But do you feel some despair sometimes, or you don't get that?
I feel pretty close toward the edge. Because after all, it says V'yitzchak ben shishim shuna b'ledes. I'm there already, and beyond that. So I have questions in myself, and that's my personal journey.
You told me a mushal 2 days ago.
I have never given up, and I do believe that there is something to do to bring it closer.
You told me a mushal 2 days ago that I already reset to a few people about the barrels.
Yeah.
And
the medrash.
Maybe
you want to say it? So that
yeah.
Okay, so I want to hear how you say it.
It's pretty similar. There was a king that asked 2 people to take the empty barrels from the river to the palatz, to the...
Not exactly. It was on the shore, on the sand.
Okay.
And there were empty barrels on the shore. And he asked them, take it down to the ocean, fill it up with water, and carry it back onto the shore.
Oh, just
onto
in
the
and
sand.
out.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it's like a mountain with a palace.
And the king said, I'm going to pay you for what you do. You work the whole day. I'm going to pay you. So the king left, and sure enough, they take the barrels, fill it up. And one comes back, and he sees as he brings back the barrel, the water's running out, has a hole in it.
Yeah.
Tries the next barrel, also has a hole in it. After a few barrels, he stops.
Probably a big mistake.
Yeah. The second one says, okay, it has a hole. Keeps on going. He reaches the third barrel. It all has holes. He says, look, the king said we have to fill up the barrels. I'll do my best. And he keeps on filling them up the whole day. Fills up barrels, and the water runs out of them. The king comes back at the end of the day, and he says, so, did you do what I asked? First person says, Adoni HaMelech, my king, I think there was a mistake over here. Look, these barrels have holes in them. This doesn't hold any water.
Yeah.
It was impossible.
Yeah.
Okay. And you? What about you? He says, I tell you, I just filled them up. You said I should fill them up. I filled them up. They ran out of water, and that's it. He said, you, the first person, you didn't listen to me. You're going to go to jail. You, the second person, you're going to be accepted in my palace. You'll be one of the officers. So the person said, hold it. What are you talking about? Why do I have to go to jail? He said, because I didn't ask you to fill the barrels. I just said you should fill them from the ocean and carry them back. I want the barrels clean. I don't want them to be full of water. You didn't listen to me. The other person listened to what I said. He could be an officer in the palace.
So it's a moment of silence because we have to give people time to register this, because I myself took me time to register. There's a whole different plan that Hashem has for us. We don't always know it. Maybe you're supposed to clean the barrels. You went on to say that it says, which means you should return something that's lost even 100 times. But what if the guy keeps losing his watch again and again and again 100 times? You still give it back to him, because the point is not giving back the watch. The point is that you yourself should be a giving person. Turn into a giving person. So maybe, if I may bring this back to your story, maybe your job is to light up more the darkness, a little more. Your job is not to be the final redemption, the big picking up the flag, and the end game, the end goal. It's not filling up with water all the barrels and they're all stocked up nicely. It's rinsing them. And you are rinsing one person at a time with his connection to Hashem.
So if that's true, I'll ask you for a brucha. Give me a brucha. I should be able to rinse the barrels.
Hashem should give you a lot more koyach and a lot more chayshik and a lot more clarity and a lot more simcha to keep going and rinsing barrels. Although it feels degrading for us, because we as humans, we want to see wins. That, I think it was in the Pasha, right? Kitzayit befiv, and Yodaya Tzayid and Yoshev Uhulim, right?
Yeah. The word that you said.
Yeah, I heard it from the Shavet Halevi. Moshe Weiss told me from Shavet Halevi from Rav Ozna that Yodaya Tzayid, on Isov it says that he
knew how to hunt.
He knew how to hunt. And on Yaakov, it doesn't say he knew how to learn. He's just sitting and learning. Because Isov looks at the wind If you know the test, you're a professor. If you don't know the test, you're nothing. And Yoshev Uhulim, Yaakov Avini, the test is not about your wins. It's about how much effort you put in. And Yaakov was sitting and learning all day, so he gets the full credit. It doesn't matter how much he accomplishes.
Gizaktani.
Right?
Give me chizik.
So it's bouncing off of what you said. So it will be one day will be Knesset Yisrael is going to run at least just like you ran to your father at age 4.
Ooh, wow. If you ask me what my dream is, that's my dream. I just want my parents, Uvi v'imoy, to be together.
Yeah, Uvi v'imoy here is just a mushal. It's just an example.
We're waiting for the day when Klal Yisrael will actually run to HaKadosh Baruch.
So let's keep going with you being in Philadelphia, and he's convincing you to go to Eretz
Exactly right. So what he said, and if you go to Eretz Yisrael, you'll be able to learn that all the hashkufas.
How did you know that the word hashkufa is what you're looking for?
Yeah, okay, but that I knew already because all of these ideas that I just told you that I related to or what's called hashkufa. What's it trying to get? In other words, you learn Gemura, you learn halucha. And I was very interested in what the Gemura had to say and what the halucha is. I was very interested. I was learning that. But even more interesting to me, as you can understand, is how does all this connect to us having the echte relationship, the real relationship with Hashem?
Mm-hmm.
That was the most interesting to me. So when he said that, you'll find out the hashkufas, then I changed already.
So what was the first thing you did? You went to mom, home. Mom, I'm leaving to Israel.
I did discuss it with my mother. Baruch Hashem, as you'll see from the story, I had a very understanding mother. She had a schis, tremendous schis in Shemayim, and she let me go, even though it was hard for her.
Wow.
Because again, they were alone at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So I did go with my friends the first year to Eretz Yisrael.
When do you go? Elul?
Before Elul, yeah. So here's the thing. It was my first time on a plane.
Okay.
First time in Eretz Yisrael.
Okay.
And we didn't have any relatives in Eretz Yisrael because my father's family had already all come to America.
Mm-hmm.
And my mother's family, we didn't have really any relatives. Just one second cousin from my mother was in Eretz Yisrael.
His name?
His name, Rav Avram Yaakov Kalish, who was a well-known Belzer Chussid. He was nifted now about a year ago.
The father of the famous singer.
I think it could be it's his Yortzeit, his Eshte Yortzeit this week. It should be his chis for him.
Oh my. The father of the famous singer Dudi Kalish. I don't even know how we are cousins.
So now I'll explain to you.
Now's a good time.
So my mother's father, who was a Minkacher, his sister married a Kalish, married someone from the Kalish family.
Okay.
And they had a daughter. That's the middle cousin. So that daughter is a cousin of my mother, and she came to America, and she married a Yekeshe Yid.
Okay.
Levy. The family's Levy in Baltimore. I actually met them. I knew them, Yekeshe Yid. And she said, this cousin of my mother said that she has a cousin in Eretz Yisrael from the Kalish family, who's her cousin, which makes it a second cousin from my mother. That I could visit over there. If I have no relatives, I could visit.
Okay, it's like Masechtes Yevumis. I'm trying to figure out who is what.
So sure enough, when I went, just remember second cousin.
Yeah.
So when I went to Eretz Yisrael, sure enough, my mother gave me the address. She gave me how to get in touch. So I went to Eretz Yisrael.
What was the address? But I think some things are engraved in our mind, and if I'm looking for B-roll in the middle, I can always
Breslev in Bnei Brak.
There you go.
Okay.
Rehov Breslev 3.
Okay.
So I want to put up a picture of that thing on Google Maps. I can go and find a picture of that because we're looking for B-roll. We can't put up B-roll of your connection to Hashem. Maybe an AI, but we can put up Rehov Breslev 3 in Bnei Brak.
Okay, so the story goes like this. I came to Yeshiva in Eretz Yisrael, and at that time, there was an email, there was postcards. Even phones weren't what they are now, right?
Wow.
So I got a postcard, and I wrote to the address, Lekova Rav Kalish, the city of Bnei Brak. Wow, I would love to see it. And I meant I'm coming for a whole year. You know, I'll come to visit you one time during the year.
Metz Hashem, yeah.
What did he do? It took probably a little while till he got the postcard, but maybe the day he got the postcard, he got in touch with my Rosh Yeshiva.
How? There was no phones.
No, phones worked, the hard line, the regular
the one
line
we
phone.
turned.
Yeah,
wow,
the phones worked,
that.
but not, it wasn't with cell phones. So he got in touch with my Rosh Yeshiva, and the Rosh Yeshiva called me in to say, do you have a cousin? Do you have someone, a relative in Bnei Brak?
Wow.
I say, yes. He says, he wants you to come to visit him this Shabbos. So what type of achnusoch is this? You want me to come? I just arrived.
You weren't used to the Hasidic.
No, well, I wasn't used to this approach.
Yeah. Today you do that for a lot of people.
In any case, so I followed the instructions. I went on the buses. First time, Eretz Yisrael, intercity buses. I get to Bnei Brak. I look up, where's the place? Breslov Shalosh. I go up the stairs. I knock on the door. And I'm sure that this cousin is more Yekish. Because the cousin in between is a Yekish. She married
so
a
you're
Yekish.
imagining you're going to
So
see
I'm
a
imagining
tzayeket.
he's going to be like an older man. He has maybe one daughter. She is married. She isn't married. He's probably wearing a short jacket. Maybe with a jacket, maybe without a jacket.
Maybe a little dog
That's
in
what
the
I'm
house. You didn't think about that.
And then I knock on the door.
And
the door opens. Drei hoiche Buchrim mit der ganze Levish. And I'm like stuck. Like, what am I going to do? I can't turn around now.
wow.
And I'm thinking to myself, du, Bive hit, ganze Rekel, schwarze Socken. And like, they're all looking at me. And I'm standing there by the door.
And you came into the
I had a Levish, but it wasn't that Levish.
right. And you
In any case,
stroke.
I said to myself, wow, this is the real thing. I wasn't ready for it, but that's what Hashem was mazmin.
Wow. What does the next moment look like?
No, the next way, Rav Kalish, Yaakov Kalish with tremendous machnes oirich. He brought me in, big smile. He gave me. We sat by the table. As you can imagine, beautiful singing, beautiful zmiris.
Yeah. Family college.
I
is
didn't
known
understand everything that they were talking about because it's a different culture. At that time in the house, his oldest is Shlomo Kalish, a very well-known composer for all of Klal Yisrael, but he was already married, he was out of the house. His oldest in the house was Pinchas, who today is a big mashgiach in Yerushalayim, I think a mashgiach kashrus. Next is Altamaya Kalish,
Yeah.
who leads the capella, who leads the choir and bells.
Yeah.
Then is Reb Aaron Kalish, or maybe we'll say Horav Aaron Kalish, who's today the Rosh Yeshiva of bells in London.
Wow.
And the youngest is Dudi Kalish, who has given he's an amazing person.
He's probably the most famous. Like,
and he's
people
given
can search him
amazing
up there
songs for
fast.
Gans Klal Yisrael.
And you sat with this full Hasidic Shabbos table.
Shabbos table, and I didn't understand so much, but he was nice enough. Rabbi Yaakov Kalish took out some time to speak to me in my language, like
What,
a little bit
English?
for a few minutes. No, Hebrew.
Uh-huh.
Because my mother and grandmother spoke Yiddish, but I didn't know Yiddish so flowing.
Mm-hmm.
I understood it, but so he spoke to me in
And you understood Hebrew at the time, Abyssal?
yes, I understood Hebrew.
Uh-huh.
So it was a few minutes. It was nice. It was like they were being very nice.
Uh-huh.
But it wasn't anything that I could take in my hands and relate to.
Was the food
So
okay?
I said, shkoyach. Yeah, delicious, obviously.
Yeah?
Gewaltig.
I don't know.
Sidische
Sometimes people
Shabbos.
come to a new culture, they don't like the food.
It's gewaltig.
Okay.
I thanked it very much. Beautiful Shabbos. Thank you very much. But then I think I didn't go back the whole year.
Why? He didn't call you?
Because the yeshiva that I was in, again, when I was in Eretz Yisrael, I learned in yeshiva Bei Yaakov. Bei Yaakov is a very stark Litvish yeshiva that at the time the Rosh Yeshiva was Moshe Shmuel Shapira, one of the Gedolei. I got a lot of limit be'in from him. And the Mashgiach at that time was well known in the world, Rav Volba, Rav Shlomo Volba, who I consider my Rebbe Mivik in Missa.
Mm-hmm.
And his shmizim, he would give shmizim twice a week, once during the week and one on Shabbos. And what I heard from him was like water from a nefesh.
Wow.
So I tried to stay as much as I could in yeshiva. I wanted to get as much ashkuf as I could. He has a sefer al Shir. The first chaylik is just one step after another. What you do to grow in rochnius. I think I read the whole sefer from beginning to end.
Wow.
It's for me, it's priceless.
You felt like you found your place?
So I wouldn't say I found my place, but as far as learning, I was getting whatever I needed else learning.
Uh-huh.
So I didn't want to leave. I didn't want to lose the Shabbos. So I was there the whole year. Actually, at the end of the first year, I decided to come back a second year. Some of my chevra came back a second year.
So what, you go home for the summer?
Right. So I would go home Pesach time, and during the summer, there's a Ben Azman. So I went home twice a year, came back for a second year, and after 2 years in Eretz Yisrael, I decided, that's it. I can't do this to my grandmother and mother. I have to go back. And I decided already Pesach time that I would come back. When I finished the 2 years, I would come back and learn in Mir Yeshiva in Brooklyn, New York.
That's why you were so surprised to see what nice building they put up.
You noticed last week.
Yeah.
It changed from the time that I was in Mir.
I brought you from the
back in the
airport
day.
on Ocean Parkway. There's a new building of Yeshiva Smir.
Baruch Hashem.
That's also
Beautiful,
something you can
beautiful,
find on Google
beautiful.
Maps. And you were like, wow, this is good. So you were in
I'm
that
very
building?
happy that they were in that building, but it looked a little different back then.
Yeah.
So in any case, when I came back for the end of the second year, so you come back for 3 months, he is Sivan Thomas, And a month before I went back to America, so I went to visit Rav Kalish again. Went to visit his house. Again, the same exact thing. They sing beautiful. They speak between themselves. He speaks a little bit with me. Beautiful Shabbos. Lemasa, what took place is that he said to me, I have 3 buchrim in Belz Yeshiva. You're going back to America? You never saw Belz Yeshiva. Why don't you go for Shabbos to Belz Yeshiva? I went the next Shabbos, one of the Shabbosim afterwards. I came to Belz Yeshiva in Yerushalayim for the first time.
Yeah.
So I came into Belz Yeshiva, sure enough, it was Erev Shabbos. I met Pinchas. He had a spot ready for me. He took me down to the dormitory. I put down my things. Then I hear a clap. And the buchrim start to run. And I'm asking, where's everyone running to? The Ruv is coming in. The Ruv Kimtaran. What does that mean?
Who's the Ruv?
What does it mean?
Wow.
So we go upstairs, and at that time, Agrippas, this one man besmedish. So I went barely past the door, and I'm used to going into a shield.
Everybody has a seat.
You have your stende, you have your place. And I go in a few steps, and all of a sudden, people are coming in. It's like a wave.
They're
coming in. And I'm barely standing.
They're
like standing
crushing
between
you.
2 people. And this is the way we're going to daven. Okay, say that. Fine, because Agrippas at that time, Leon Hara.
It's a culture shock.
So we davened Mincha. And then came Kabul Shabbos. So Kabul Shabbos, I was used to a chazan saying, and then it's quiet.
Right.
And then he fears those. And then he says the end. And then it's quiet, and then he fears those. And here the chazan says, and everyone starts to yell. Everyone around me is yelling the Tehillim. And I'm wondering, what are they yelling about? What happened? And then I realized, it's Shabbos. Okay.
What a difference.
We come to the Chodoidi, right? So we make a Lebedik and Nigan, the Chodoidi, maybe 5 minutes longer, the ganze Zach. They're singing for like 20 minutes. What was Titzach though?
Wow.
Kids, it was a very different experience than anything I ever had. We went downstairs for the Seder after davening. I never saw in a yeshiva so many foods or choices of food.
Really?
In a yeshiva. I was in a yeshiva. I was in a yeshiva. And Baruch Hashem, they had food in the yeshiva. But it was nowhere near what I saw over there in Belz on Shabbos.
Back in the day?
Back in then, yeah. In
Really?
Agrippas, yeah. Akitza, it made a big impression on me. We're sitting at the downstairs in the Chadar Eichel, and then someone gives a clap. All of a sudden, it was us to run, and I'm sitting at the table. I'm still in the middle of eating.
I'm loving this.
So they're running upstairs. Where's everyone running? The Ruv Kim Taran.
Did you see the Ruv already, or you still
I
were
never saw
squished
it.
you didn't
Right,
see him yet?
Yeah, I didn't see it.
You just knew we're standing in a room with someone, the Ruv.
So to tell you the truth, if you're asking that question, I did actually see the Belzer Ruv already on an occasion because the yeshiva that I was at in Eretz Yisrael made Simchas Torah in Yerushalayim in Beit Vegan. So we had one Simchas Torah in Beit Vegan, and I was staying in a place that was closer to Mecca, the middle of the city. So we walked back on Simchas Torah from Beit Vegan. I remember on the way we passed Agrippas and Belz Yeshiva. So I said, I know this yeshiva because my second cousin is. Can I go in for a minute? So I went in. Behashgucha, I met Pinchas that first year that I was there.
Wow.
I went into Belz Yeshiva. I had nothing to do with Belz, but I went to Belz Yeshiva on Simchas Torah, walking back after we had finished already everything. They were still in the middle of Akufas.
So you saw the Ruv demos the first time?
So Pinchas brought me and he says, here, come to see the roof. Now, Belz was so small back then.
Yeah,
this is even before I came there, even before Mem Aleph Mem Bais, that the parenches weren't even all the way at the walls yet. It was still like a little area around. That was the Hakufas.
In Agrippas.
So he pushed me in through a few people, and I was standing literally probably about 3 feet away from the roof.
For how long?
Pushed me for a few seconds, just to see because the roof would sit down between the Hakufas. So the roof sat at its place by the Umid.
That's when you saw him first time?
So he pushed me in over there by the Umid, and I know that the halucha is, you say a bruchos. I said, Buruch ato Hashem kein melech olam,
Chulak machachmus
elirayev. So I didn't know this, but Pinchas told me years later that the roof had geämpft umay.
The roof heard?
Yeah. So I don't know if there was a person before or after who made that brucha. I made that brucha. So I did see the Belzer roof, but it was literally a few seconds because mamish after I made the brucha,
they pulled you away.
Wow. So I did see the roof already.
Wow.
But I never saw him over there on Shabbos.
So then they were running by the tish.
So they were running, and Pinchas was nice enough. He waited for me. Like the Chazal was already empty. So we come upstairs to Agrippas. At that time, the tish is in the Members Medrash. We come upstairs, and I always see is bleachers with schwarze Socken. Just black socks all around. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
I don't know. So he takes
just
me
like
around.
You have right now.
Yeah. So he takes me around, and he pushes me between 2 buchrim, and I see the Ruv is standing at the front of the tish with the talis on his strama, and he's yelling the Shulam Aleichem. Okay, comes to Kiddush, and he's yelling the Kiddush at the top of his lungs, and everyone is watching every move, every word that he says. I'd never seen anything like it. Comes to Zmiris, 500 people at one time, all joining it. I'd never seen anything like it. Shachas in the morning, Shalashidis. It was an amazing experience. During Shabbos, Pinchas introduced me to the Mashgiach of the Yeshiva Ktana at that time, who was a well-known Belzer Chusid, Busha Lustigman, should be well. And he said, if you have any questions on the Chassidus, you can ask him. So I said, look, I think this is a very unique, special lifestyle. I'm going back to America, but how can I have a connection to this? What does it mean to me? So he said, you know what? If you're going to the Ruv, Motzei Shabbos, so tell the Rebbe that you want to stay in touch with letters. Okay. Interesting hadruch. Anyway, so came Motzei Shabbos. It wasn't like it is today that everyone goes by Motzei Shabbos. It takes like a whole half hour. At that time, the guests who gave a hand before Shabbos, they go by Motzei Shabbos. And whoever remembers in Agrippas, the Ruv had a little tzimmer next to the main Beis Medrash. That was his tzimmer. He went in Motzei Shabbos to the tzimmer, and the people who had to give shulam were in a line outside of that room. So Pinchas stood me in the line. He said, you gave shulam Erev Shabbos. You have to go give shulam when you go out. So I didn't know how this goes. I just go in. I'm in a line. There was an older person in front of me. He went in. He stood for maybe 10 seconds in front of the roof, and he goes out the other door. So I know how you do it. I'm standing by the door. You go in front of the roof. You go out the other door. Okay, fine. I go in, and the roof had a bell on his table, like one of those bells. And he knocked on the bell twice. And I look behind me. I see the Gabbai closes the door behind me. So I'm wondering what's going on. The roof says to me in Hebrew, Shev, sit down.
Have a seat.
He starts to ask me all type of questions. What's your name? Where you coming from? Who do you know over here? Who are your Rebbes? I'm thinking to myself, what about the people outside? Aren't they like, don't they want to go also? There was having like a whole conversation. I'm sitting there and
a totally different mindset than all this.
So I'm telling the Ruv that I came for 1 year. It was very hard to come for 1 year because I live with my mother and grandmother. I'm only child. And I came already for 2 years, and I'm going to go back, and now I'm going to learn a mir in America. So the Ruv said in the middle, Avot, Mil Mesha Tatzarich Lachzor. Translated means, who says that you have to go back? And I didn't even hear the question. I just said right away, I have to go back. My mother and grandmother are alone. I'm going to go back. But can I stay in touch with the Rebbe with letters? No. Ungewünscht. And I went out. That Motzei Shabbos was already too late to go back to yeshiva. I went back Sunday morning. And Tachana Merkazit, the main bus station, is about a block away from Agrippa. So Pinchas walked me in the morning. And we're walking from yeshiva's bells to Tachana Merkazit. I'm going back to yeshiva. And Pinchas is telling me, and remember, he's a bucha now, he's telling me, every chussid believes that there's Rebbe's Richa Kodesh. And when the roof says something, it's not so pushit. And he has deeper intentions in it. And he's asking me every single thing. What did the roof say? And what did you answer? And I'm going over the conversation with him, but it's like interesting to me that he's so interested in everything that the roof said. Okay, fine.
How did you view the roof the first time you're sitting down with him? What did he look like to you? Just a Talmud Chochem?
A very chushev person.
Okay, that's it. It's funny because when we go in, as brought up in this community, we shiver when we're there. Mamash. Probably by now you too, but as your first introduction, it wasn't like a big deal.
The world is a real place. If you get to that level, you grow into it. But that wasn't where I was holding the first time I went in.
So Pinchas is asking you all the questions, and you tell him the line.
Yeah, and then I got onto the bus, and the bus is about an hour ride to get to the yeshiva. And it's a beautiful day, and I'm looking at the scenery in Eretz Yisrael. It's beautiful, and I'm thinking over to myself what he told me. Every chussid believes that his Rebbe has Richa Kodesh, and what the roof says has deeper meaning. And I'm going over the conversation in my mind, and then all of a sudden it hits me. 1 minute, I just told you that I can't be so far away from my grandmother and mother for so long, and Hamas is never ready to come to first. Why would you ask in the middle?
Who says you have to go back?
Do you know something that I don't know?
Exactly.
It's obvious. So I started to think about it so much, and he has Riach HaKodesh. Maybe he's telling me something. Till by the point I got off of the bus, I decided I wanted to come back a third year. So I was not a Belzer Chusid, but because of something that the Belzer Ruf said, I decided to come back a third year to Eretz Yisrael.
And your mom was okay with it?
So when I got off the plane after 2 years, I said, can I go back for a third year?
That's what, Pesach.
No, now we're talking about the summertime
summer.
because I finished up the second year.
And summer, how many weeks do you stay
3
in America?
weeks.
3 weeks. And then you decided to go back.
So at the beginning, right when I got off the plane, I was coming for 3 weeks. I said, can I go back for the third year?
Wow.
After I already had in mind to go to Mi Yeshiva in America.
And how was it? What was your mom's
So
response?
Baruch Hashem, I told you already, I have a very understanding mother.
Wow.
At the end of the day, she let me come back.
Wow.
So it should be a schus for her. Tremendous schus.
So third year, you're going back to the yeshiva.
I went back to Be'er Yaakov. Baruch Hashem, Be'er Yaakov was like, it was like Gan Eden for me. Because at that time, first of all, I had the Rosh Yeshiva, Gudel Ador, the Mashgiach, and from the Gdoile, and Missif in the Dor. From the Mashgiach, we call him the Mashgiach.
What's different the third year than the other 2 years?
So, when you come from America, the first year you're just getting into things. The second year you're getting a little more. The third year you're really serious.
Mm-hmm.
You're really serious. For me, it was we did certain gemuras the first year, certain gemuras the second year. Be'er Yaakov also had a miftzah, like a campaign to learn in the afternoon, say the Bekiyas.
Mm-hmm.
So every week we would learn. This is unusual in yeshivas, 4 blat gemura Rashi Tosfos in the afternoon. That means every day you learn a blat gemura Rashi Tosfos. One day you chazer over, and Sunday morning there's a test.
Wow. Going back, so how did you get to Bells now? What was your relationship with Bells now?
So again, I didn't really have a relationship. I just wanted to be in Be'er Yaakov. That's what I was saying.
And
so at the end of my third year, before I had already decided I want to come back for a fourth year.
really?
So this is someone who didn't want to come for the first year. I was already realized by the end of my third year, I need to come back for a fourth year if I want this to stay.
What age are you now?
What age? So 18, 19, 20, 21. 21 coming back to Be'er Yaakov.
But where's Bells integrating into this?
Oh, so I'm telling you, because after I went home for Pesach in the third year,
Yeah.
I came back to finish up the 3 months of Summersman,
Yeah.
and then I was going to go home to Flatbush for 3 weeks and come back to Be'er Yaakov for the fourth year, Rosh Chodesh Elul.
Okay.
I went to visit Rav Kalish like a month before I went home. From the third year.
Sivan. Okay.
Around Sivan. And then, again, a nice Shabbos.
Why did you go?
He's our relative.
Yeah, okay. Once a year, you have a relative.
So I went to visit him.
Okay.
And it came out, Be'ashgucha, after the Seder by day, everyone went to sleep, and it was just me and him sitting. I was sitting with him, Yavd B'cham L'chaim, in the kitchen.
Wow.
And he says to me, now I'm about 20, it's before my fourth year, I'm about 20, and he says to me, no, what about Shidduchim? And that was the first time anyone had mentioned to me such a question. I never heard such a question.
But and
Remember-
no one in your shir and your
No,
nothing.
in the Litvisher world, you only
When?
start to think about Shidduchim 21, 22.
Okay.
You don't think about Shidduchim. But in the Chassidische Welt, it's already late.
It's very late, yeah.
Ja, alte Bucher schon.
18 mit Aminit, yeah, yeah.
So Mimaila, he asked me, what about Shidduchim? So it was the first time anyone asked me this question. You know, we don't even start to think about this
Right.
question yet. And then before I had a chance to speak, he says, what about the Chassidische girl? He says in Hebrew, what about Wizmida? So I was like, no. I first want to become
Jewish.
a yeshiva man. I want
Yeah.
to become a yeshiva man.
Yeah.
I want to become the way I'm supposed to be in Limud, in Torah. Maybe afterwards, once I get married, we'll look into the Chassidus one day.
Yeah, yeah.
He says, no, you can't do that. Once you're married already, it's very hard to switch Deruchim. You have to have your derech already before you're married.
Wow.
That's what he told me.
And this is a random conversation Shabbos morning.
Random, Be'ashgucha.
Yeah.
So I went out of there, and I thought, what he's saying is true. It makes a lot of sense, but I can't do anything. I'm in a Litvish yeshiva. This is what I want to be. So I didn't know how you could do such a thing. How could I find out about the Hasidic world? When I went back to yeshiva, all of a sudden it hit me. I'm supposed to go back now for 3 weeks to be in Flatbush.
Mm-hmm.
And then come back to start this man, Rosh Chodesh Elul. At that time, it's not today anymore, but at that time, the yeshivische Welt has Ben Azman between Tisha B'Av and Rosh Chodesh Elul, but the Chassidish Welt, Befrat Yeshivas Bells, went all the way through. They had one Zman from Pesach till Tishrei. And they learned even during those 3 weeks. So I thought to myself, why should I go home and be in Flatbush for a few weeks and then come back? I have an opportunity. I want to learn about the Chassidish lifestyle. I'll go to Yeshiva's Bells for those 3 weeks, and then I'll see what the Chassidish lifestyle is about. I'll be ready to come back by Rosh Chodesh. I'll be able to be ready for Yeshiva.
And you're not going to even see your mom for a full 2 years?
Then I wouldn't see my mother for a whole year because I was home for Pesach
right.
till the next Pesach.
Uh-huh.
That would be the first time that I wouldn't see them for a whole year.
Mm-hmm.
Correct. The bigger problem was that my mother had already purchased a ticket for me to come back and forth. In the summertime was the highest price. We didn't have so much means at that time, as you can understand. She already purchased a ticket and it was non-refundable.
Mm-hmm. So that was another piece of to the decision making. Yeah.
Right. So I wrote a letter to my mother. Maybe I could just stay for these 3 weeks
Wow.
in Eretz Yisrael. I have an opportunity that I won't have afterwards to learn about the Chassidish lifestyle. It was a back and forth, but to her chis, to be a chis for her and all my emes.
Oh man.
She was mavata on the ticket, and she let me come back.
Wow. Why is that so emotional for you?
It's emotional because she gave up of herself. Remember, the people today, I mean, I hope I'm not experiencing it. Once you marry off all the kids, there's a certain emptiness. It's not push it. I understood that when I was already leaving the first year. That's why I didn't want to leave in the first place. I left for 1 year. I left for 2 years. I left for 3 years. To let me come back under such conditions, no one else was doing it. For the 4th year.
No one else in Flatbush.
So let me come back for the 4th year and give up on what had already been paid for. I think it's unusual. That's what makes me feel that way. I think it's a tremendous chis for her. Because I know that I'm only here today where I am because of that. Wow. It's like those moments in life where you have a chance. It's like the flip of a coin, so to speak.
Yeah.
Either it's going to go this way or this way. Yeah. And it went that way, but it went that way because of her. If she wouldn't have been maskim, I wouldn't have been able to do it.
I had that thought when you mentioned Shabbos afternoon random conversation, that Hashem is mazmin these opportunities throughout life of small
things that you wouldn't expect or give importance to.
Yeah, or times that, you had a conversation on the side of the road. You'd be waiting for the bus. I just was in Eretz Yisrael Shabbos morning. I had this chis to be with my son 2 hours before Shachris down in the park. The conversation we were zoche to have then, we're gonna remember this for life. And it was like a 2 hour in a full trip, full chasana, the family, everybody was dancing and eating and everything, and we got to have these 2 hours, and it wasn't planned before, and it's like these gifts of life.
So I'll maybe bring a source for what you're saying, a proof to what you're saying. There's a place in the Gemara where it says, "Kadhava behilila devei." They were by a wedding of someone. The kad, when he was leaning al dusha, when he was leaning on the side of the doors of the door, that's when they said this divrei Torah to each other, and that gets recorded in the Gemara. Why do they have to tell me all that background? This is the answer, because those things that we don't expect, our Father worries for us. He's putting them in. And that will be able to see, the disciples will be able to see when Mashiach comes, everyone will be able to look back at their life and see, wow, all of this was exactly in the right second it was supposed to be, so that came out exactly what was supposed to come out.
And it's never what we plan ahead and are able to.
We're too small to see what's taking place.
Wow. It's also that one line that the Belzeruf told you. It's all those tiny moments in life that are more meaningful and more bigger than the big plans we have and the sit downs and everything. I always say when we plan a What a Day, some organizations are more in detail. So what are we going to do? I'm planning Mitzvah Shem one in 2 weeks, next week. And there's like a whole team. There's a Zoom with 8 people, and everybody gives but what are you going to do when you're going to come off the bus? I said, Rabbi, let's leave some room for Hashem. And it always works. I'm up to episode 22. It always works. Hashem puts in these moments, these
allow
interesting...
yourself to flow.
Yeah. These random people that come over. I just did Chesed 24/6, and we had random people in the Chesed room that were more meaningful, and you couldn't have planned this better than it came out. It came out much better than
I
you
was just
planned.
talking about this with Mami. Why do we say there's some people that they ask her, what do you mean? It's always going to be b'shurta mitzlachas. That's what we wish each other. And the answer is no. There are some moments, according to Shlomo Melech and Kahel, there's some moments that are not the best moments. If you have on the Chachzana Katl, 5:30 the chip is starting, and you make it exactly at 5:30, that might not be the best moment. If you let yourself go according to the Hashgucha, Hashem is already going to make it at the best moment.
It's interesting you're talking about the best moment for the chippah, because my chippah was supposed to be 7:30 and it was 10:15. And I fasted all the way till then.
Okay, so you're saying I don't have to ask Mechila for that? Because it was the
No,
best
no,
moment.
it was the best moment.
Okay.
Baruch Hashem, it's working out. Baruch Hashem. So we are back in you starting the 4th year. And what exactly happens? How do you come into bells? I want to get to bells already.
Okay, so here we go. I used those 3 weeks. I called up Rav Kala. She worked it out with the Mashgichim. I came for those 3 weeks. Be'er Yaakov finished its Zman on Tisha B'Av, right? And then afterwards, 3 weeks, I came to bells. Pinchas, I think, gave me a place by the table with Buchrim, bells.
And you're not dressed as a belzer yet.
Right, exactly. I wasn't dressed. I had a short jacket.
You didn't feel out.
I had a short jacket. No, I was visiting. I wanted to see what the lifestyle was like.
Like a tourist.
And I really didn't speak much because I was listening to them. Again, I didn't know so well the culture in it.
And you were speaking to them in Hebrew.
Whoever I spoke to.
Right.
I was more observing. I was an observer.
Yeah.
But I did develop at that point a better connection with the youngest son of Rav Kalish, who's today Rav Aaron. Aaron. We developed a good cash and we would speak each day a little bit. And that would give me chizik.
What would you do all day? You just sit in the corner?
What I did all day? No. The Beis Medrash was open. I took a spot in the Beis Medrash, and I basically just reviewed the Chazad over whatever we did in Be'er Yaakov for the ganze Zman. I had time to Chazad over. It was gewaltig.
And you learned already that every time they clap, there's the next thing.
No, but the thing is, the roof wasn't there, Dafka, during those 3 weeks. Whoever remembers those years, Mem Aleph, Mem Bai, so the roof was in Baghdastan. So I didn't really have the full experience of bells during those 3 weeks, but the Buchim would get together for Atzinach, they'd make a bote. The kids, it was all very nice.
It's still a warm Hasidic environment.
Yeah. So that's
and they still clap at the end of the Seder. Like, how do you know to get up?
Davening,
before davening. So they still clap.
So Lemase came the end of the 3 weeks, and I'm ready to go back, and I'm all ready to start in Be'er Yaakov and Zman, my 4th year in Zman.
And?
So this youngest son of Rav Kalish, remember, he was probably about 17, which means he was 2nd year of being in bells. So he had experienced all the Yomim Tovim just last year, 16, because he's a B'nai Baraka. So he came and he had all the Yomim Tovim. So he was sharing with me. So he comes and tells me, as I'm going back, he says, you're going back to yeshiva now, but you should know, this coming month, there's a Shabbos. It's called Shabbos Slichas. People come from all over the world. They get up in the middle of the night. The Rebbe says Slichas. People cry. You've never seen anything like it.
Now you're getting curious.
I say like this. Look, Be'er Yaakov is a very strict yeshiva. If you have a long winter's man, you're only allowed out 2 Shabboses. In the ganze winter's man, Elul is a short man. I get off 1 Shabbos. So I'll take my Shabbos Slichas.
Okay.
So they worked out. So Ataka came to Bells for Shabbos Slichas, with just like you said, more people than I ever saw before at Bells, come from all over the world. They get up in the middle of the night. Rebbe says Slichas, people cry. I saw people crying. It was right. Amazing. The first day of Slichas in Bells, as you know, is a big day.
Yeah.
The Rebbe davens for the woman for Shachris. Afterwards, they said Gan Sefer Tehillim. It's now about 1:30 in the afternoon. I have to go by the roof because I said hello when I came. So now I have to go by.
You figured this out.
Okay. So as I'm waiting online, I'm ready to go by the roof to say Gesegnen. And it's already late for me because the Erste Tug Slichas is a regular Tug in Yeshiva. So I'm already missing.
Yeah,
time.
You're already 1 p.m.
I have to get back. So we had this conversation with the Reb Aaron comes over, and he says, you can't imagine. Next week is going to be a Yom Tov Rosh Hashanah. The Rebbe blows shofar. He davens Misif. People cry. You've never seen anything like it. Even more people come from the whole world.
So he's the best bell salesman you've met.
I'm telling him, look, I cannot come for Rosh Hashanah. I'm in a yeshiva. And everyone knows if you're in a yeshiva, you're there for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Even if you don't show up any of the other days, the whole year, you're in the yeshiva for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur.
A Litvish yeshiva, you have to be the Rosh Hashanah.
You're there, Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. It's not a shala. So he says he didn't have anything to answer. So I wasn't coming for Rosh Hashanah. He says, you know what? You have to go by the Rebbe. Ask the Rebbe. Gives us everyone's going by. I come up to the Rebbe. And I say in my Hebrew, הייתי רוצה לבוא לראש השנה. I would like to come for Rosh Hashanah. אבל אני לא יכול.
I can't because
אני בישיבה.
yeshiva.
I can't. מה אני אעשה? I'm asking a Rebbe.
What should I do?
What should I do? And he answered me a very Rebbish answer. He answered me in Hebrew, אתה תראה כבר מה לעשות. You'll already see what to do. He sent me away.
Wow.
Now, when you tell a person to Litvish yeshiva, you'll already see what to do. You have no doubt you're going to be in the yeshiva for Rosh Hashanah. That's what it means. You already see what to do. So I saw already what to do. I'm going to be in there. And I had no doubt I was going to be in Be'er Yaakov. But as the days get closer, Shabbos comes already and you start slichas. You start to feel it Rosh Hashanah. You get up fatu, you get up earlier and earlier until it reaches Erev Rosh Hashanah. Erev Rosh Hashanah, you get up a whole 2 hours, 3 hours in the morning to say slichas. You mamash feel it. And I'm thinking to myself, look, this is probably my last year in Eretz Yisrael. I can't draw this out anymore. And if I want to have the experience of Chassidim, a Rosh Hashanah, I'll never be able to see it. This is my one chance. I already saw Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur in Be'er Yaakov.
3 times.
And now I have the opportunity to see him bells. So it's Erev Rosh Hashanah, 10 o'clock in the morning. I go to the Mashgiach's house.
No way.
I knock on the door. I come into his room. He's sitting by his table. And I say, can I have a shiz to leave the yeshiva for just 2 days? Erev Rosh Hashanah.
He was shocked.
So he looks at me. And I'm thinking to myself, he's probably thinking, no one would dare to ask the question. In other words, even if you have a Havamina and you think you want to leave the yeshiva for Rosh Hashanah, no one's going to ask the Mashgiach. So he says, where do you want to go? So I explained to him, I would like to go to Bells in Yerushalayim. I'm here already for this amount of these years. I saw already Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur and Be'er Yaakov. This is probably my last year in Eretz Yisrael. So I would like to see how it is by the Chassidim. So him, Kedaka B'Kodesh, was a Baal Musar, a Baal Avoida. So he didn't say yes or no. He just sort of shrugged his shoulders.
Wow.
That he probably meant, like, who would want to do such a thing? Like, how can you give up a Rosh Hashanah?
He was so surprised.
So I took that as a yes. So I took my things already.
You ran to the bus.
And I got on the last bus to Yerushalayim.
Wow.
And I made it. Rosh Hashanah was coming in early, 5 o'clock. I made it to Yerushalayim.
Wow.
And Pinchas Baruch Hashem had a seating place because there was no place to sit even at that time in Agrippas. That first Rosh Hashanah I was able to sit. Because he probably knew I wouldn't have been able to survive. I would have had to stand.
How did he find a seat for you?
He prepared a seat for me.
He knew you coming?
So I guess he knew that I might come.
Wow.
Yeah. Or maybe I called him earlier that day and I told him. He got a seat for me. At that time, probably close to impossible. But
wow.
He got a seat, the first Rosh Hashanah, and I experienced it. It was just like he said, the Rebbe blew shofar. If more people come, people cry. Fine. As I'm leaving after Rosh Hashanah, Seb Aaron comes and tells me, you can't imagine. Next week's going to be Yom Kippur. The Rebbe davens Marev, mit Misif, mit Neila. People cry. The Rebbe goes according to Shit Sabach. He doesn't even wear shoes. He just wears socks. You've never seen anything like it.
Wow.
I said, listen. Sick is not going to be a problem because after Yom Kippur there's a Ben Azman, so you can go anywhere, wherever you want.
Where were you sick as the first few years?
I thought I didn't have a place. I had to find by Balabata. I had to find a place. One time,
you went to random people?
1 year I was in Mir Yeshiva in Yerushalayim. I was in the sick of Mir Yeshiva in Yerushalayim.
Where did you
if
sleep?
If you're in the Yeshiva Welt, you can work it out with them. I slept in Mir Yeshiva.
I must point this out. I don't want to forget this. You told me a few weeks ago, before the Chasana, I told you that it's such a wow moment marrying off the youngest daughter, and you mentioned Ki b'makri uvarti sayarden. I also sometimes imagine you a lot of like Yaakov Avini in several scenarios, but this is one of the most powerful points. When it came to the mitzvahs, I was humming to myself this song, Ki b'makri uvarti sayarden. There is a song. It's a very soothing song. And I kept looking at you by the chasana and thinking, Yaakov Avini also, he was einer allein, going with a stick. And while you're telling me that
this week's Parsha.
Yeah, this week's Parsha. Wow. Rabbi Stefansi calls this a kiss from Hashem. That, Dashgucha, right? It's this week's Parsha. Especially when you mentioned the other sickest not having where to be, like everybody left. You told me about a story of Pirim.
Yeah, so the first year, second year that I was in yeshiva, again, we didn't have any family. I only have this second cousin who I didn't think to go to Dafka for Pirim, and there was Megillah Leinen in the yeshiva. But then when it came to morning after Megillah lining, everyone left. Everyone had a family to go to. And I was maybe one of two people from a yeshiva of hundreds of buchrim. And it was snowing that Purim. So I was in the yeshiva alone, and the person who was menal of the yeshiva had rachmunus on me. He asked me to come to his. He allowed me to come to his Siddur Purim.
But I was impacted before that point of the Manal calls you. There was a few moments or a few hours, I don't know what, that alone.
There were a lot of times where I was alone.
Seeing that and seeing the shayvet that Hashem gave you, Baruch Hashem, and the way you were dancing and what size of family, Baruch Hashem, we took a big picture of all of us together. This is mamish the pusik in full. Ki b'makli uvati yisir shna machnes. So that was a very big chizik for me. If there's anyone out there that feels lonely and feels like nobody cares, he will be one day a big shayvet. Miyatz Hashem.
So I told him Sukkah is not going to be any problem because we have a Ben Azman. Yom Kippur. Let's see. So I waited till Yom Kippur in the morning. 10 o'clock in the morning. I went and knocked. Every Yom Kippur, I went and knocked at the Mashgiach, who was the overseer of Musa in our yeshiva. I went and knocked on his door. And I went in and asked him, because remember, Ben Azman starts Motzei Yom Kippur. I asked, can I have off from the yeshiva one day before the end of Ben Azman?
Wow.
Now he looked at me. He's the person who left for Rosh Hashanah. What can he say? Tomorrow night he can go anyway. So he shrugged. And I took it as a yes. And I took already all my things for the Ben Azman. I went for Yom Kippur. And it was just like he had said. The Rebbe davened Marav, mit Misav, mit Ne'ilah, people cry. Fine. Comes after Yom Kippur.
1 second. Did you ever go back to this mashgiach and ask him what he thought about you then?
No,
or you never looked back?
I started to become a little more Haben Shaykhs with bells while I was in Be'er Yaakov.
Mm-hmm.
And the Litvische world is concerned that a person shouldn't be pulled by the externals. So it was spoken to me, not by the mashgiach, but it was spoken to me at the yeshiva about be very careful not to be pulled after Megatz Hatish, Mahot Lieb the singing. You go to a tish, you like the singing, you shouldn't be pulled externally.
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to explain, or I would have liked to explain to the people who were telling me that, but I learned the Chassidish Sfurim. I learned what it's based on. I learned the ideas, but there wasn't really a place to say.
Because they don't know anything about it.
Different approaches. In any case, so he did know that I went to Belz, and he told me once that he was by the Belzer Rebbe.
Ah, very nice.
I don't know what's the Rebbe, but again, they were concerned that I shouldn't be pulled too externally.
Motzei Yom Kippur.
Motzei Yom Kippur, so the Baran comes and tells me, you can't imagine. Never you're going to be sikkis.
He's good at this.
All the Chassidim go with the Rebbe into the sikkah. And they're two tishin every day. And you can make a bruch on the Rebbe's Litv and Esrik. Okay. Just wait till the Shana Rabbah. The Rebbe goes around 7 times.
But you were already sold at this point. You didn't mind being sikkis with them.
No, I was going to be already.
Yeah.
That's not the issue. But he's telling me his experience. The Rebbe goes around 7 times and people cry. Fine. He says, just wait till Simchas Torah. You're not going to want to leave. That's what he told me. Okay, I'm in. Sikkis, just like he said, everyone goes in. Whoever remembers those years in Belz when it was 2 tishin every day, we know what it means, what it says in the Gemara, there's no time to sleep. Between the Mitzvah, Halam, Mitzvah, nights. Then comes Hoshana Rabbah.
Lo Re'ini Shani by 90 means we had no time to sleep because by the time the Tish, which is the
finishes
table,
at night,
the cedar of the roof, you had to already get up for Shachis and stuff like that. Okay.
And then comes Hoshana Rabbah, just like he said. Then comes Simchas Torah. Simchas Torah in Belz at that time, the bleachers were already up against the walls. And you come in before davening, you get a spot to stand, and all you could see, they take out all the tishin, all the bank from the ganze Besmedish, all you could see is just, I had a spot on the bleachers, and looking down, we say wall to wall. Sometimes you say wall to wall carpet, but it was wall to wall people.
Wow.
All you see is people, stramlich. It's a nest that when the roof comes out to do the hakufas, somehow yesh me'ayin, there's a little spot in the middle that opens up that the Rebbe can actually do the hakufas around the bima in the middle. But then comes mincha time. Mincha is a minig in Belz that after the Rebbe finishes davening for the Umad mincha, so they make hakufas shniyas. What's hakufas shniyas? All the hakufas are 5 minutes, and this one's only 2 minutes. But the difference is, by all the hakufas, the minig is that the Rebbe dances with the talis on his head, over his face, so you can't see his face. But by hakufa shniyas, he starts dancing with the talis over his head, and he throws it off in the middle. The mishamish grabs the talis, and then you could see his face. So, sure enough, it's after mincha, we're waiting there. At that point, it's like you're so pressed between people. I have no other example to give in the world other than the word sardines. It's like, I'm sorry, but you're so pressed, and the person who leads the hakufa niggin, so they give the sign, and everyone starts to sing, and the Rebbe is dancing, and the Rebbe goes to dance in the middle, and everyone's dancing in their place. And the Rebbe starts off with the talis. In the middle, he throws off the talis. You could see his face. And the Rebbe, that time, when he was younger, was a little bit more heavy set. I heard because he has a slow metabolism rate. And to see this person running back and forth at the top of his might, jumping up and down, and the people are jumping on the bleachers so much that the bleachers jump up and down. I came down afterwards, I saw that the wheels from the bleachers made holes in the tiles. The whole room, I have no other way to explain it other than it's indescribable. You have to have been there. And those people who were there had this chiz, they know what I'm talking about. Nowadays, it's not the same. But at that time, it was an indescribable experience. After the Hakufa Shniyas, I wanted to stay. And I went into the Belzer Rebbe a couple of days after Simchas Torah. I said, can I come to your yeshiva? And he, b'chochmusai, answered no.
What a disappointment.
Which was amazing from his side, because usually people are looking, they want people to come there. He realized that I wasn't holding there. I wasn't holding there in Levish, I wasn't holding there in the language, I wasn't holding there in the culture. It took me time.
Wow.
And he said no.
Which a lot of people do the mistake of jumping too fast and they break.
Right. So I thank the Belzer Rebbe, you should be well for that everything I did, it did slowly. I asked him if the next Rosh Hashanah I could put on a beketche mit a bivahit. He said, the beketche, okay, not the hat. Don't change the hat.
Wow.
And even when I was in Belz already, learning in Belz, I had a long coat, but I didn't have I had a bend-up hat.
When did you start learning in Belz?
Oh. So, at that time, the Rebbe said no. I went back to Ber Yaakov, and I was in Ber Yaakov for the end of till Pesach of the 4th year. Then I went back to learn in Mir Yeshiva. And at this point, I was probably at one of the lowest places in my life.
Why?
Not as overwhelming as it was when I was a child, but I was feeling pretty lost. I'm going to tell you why. Because I'm at the age of shidduchim. I had already broken the connection with the people I grew up with. I wasn't part of their community anymore. I'm 4 years away from where they are. You don't just go back in the community and look for a shidduch.
What age is this, 22?
I'm already 22. And now, but I can't be with the community that I want to go into because I wasn't there yet. So I'm sort of between the worlds, and I have to find the shidduch, and the clock is ticking. So I came back to Mir Yeshiva in America. I made a kesher with the Belz community in Borough Park in Williamsburg. So what am I going to do? I discussed it with my mother, and Baruch Hashem, she agreed. After I was in Mir for about a year and a half, she agreed. We decided I'm going to go to Eretz Yisrael for 6 months. I'm going to try to get a Belz shidduch. If I'm not successful, I'll come back to Flatbush, find a girl from Flatbush, and we'll be miskadev together.
If I may say, you said you felt very lost at that point because...
Or the word is more in between.
In between.
There's nothing I can do about it.
In Flatbush, you weren't part of, and in Belz, you weren't part of. I had a similar feeling, a different experience in the yeshiva, that the Lazer guys felt like I'm too serious for them, and the Talmidei Chachomim that sat 18 hours a day, and I wasn't part of them. So I was in between the chairs. In between the chairs.
So in a certain way, it's a certain feeling of being lost. It's a certain feeling of, you see them. It's part of the journey.
Yeah. Yeah. So you decided to come back for another year and a half.
So I came for 6 months in Elul. This was almost a year and a half in Mir. I came for Elul, and the 6 months end in Shvat. I went around to Shadchunim in Eretz Yisrael, looking for Belz shidduch. So someone tells me I come in. What are you looking for, brother? I have someone just like you. What do you mean, just like me? I'm looking for a regular. Kids, what they set up wasn't really shaykh b'chlal. one thing they set up. A girl from Haifa went to Tzava. I didn't even know what Tzava was.
Wow.
And then afterwards, someone from Canada from a different Chassidus. It's like it wasn't Shach. Until it came Shvat, and I decided, that's it. They don't get me, I'm going to go back to Flatbush.
And you went back.
The only thing was, it was Tufshin Daled Mem, the year that the Belzer should be well put down the cornerstone for Binyan Beis Medrash Hagudel in Yerushalayim.
Right.
And he asked all the Chassidim to come from the whole world for Shavuos, and a few days after Shavuos, he's going to put down the Even HaPinah. He's
And
going to put down the cornerstone. So I thought to myself like this. It's Shvat. If I go home now, I'm not going to have the money to buy a ticket and come back Shavuos. I'm not going to be here for Shavuos. And if I want to be a Belzer Chusid, how can I be a Belzer Chusid when the Ruv is putting down the Evan, the cornerstone, and all the Chassidim are coming from the whole world? How am I not going to be here?
Mm-hmm.
I called up my mother. I said, look, I'm supposed to come back now at Shvat, but maybe we could just change the ticket back till a week after Shavuos, and then I'm going to come back. Then I'm going to come right away. But just give me till a week after Shavuos, and Baruch Hashem, an understanding mother, should be a schus for her.
Wow.
She let me stay till after Shavuos.
So you stayed in Belzer Yeshiva then?
In Belzer Yeshiva. So I didn't include this, but originally when I came for those 6 months, since I was learning in the Mir, my plan was to learn in Mir Yeshiva during the week and to come to Belzer only Shabbos.
Uh-huh.
But the way the Dashgucha had it, when I landed from the plane and I came straight to Yerushalayim, I went to Belzer Yeshiva, and they were just finishing Shachris of Rosh Chodesh Elul. I came Elul. So it was Rosh Chodesh Elul, and they were finishing at the Yeshiva, Rosh Chodesh Elul Shachris, and the person who was coming out of the Beis Medrash was this Reb Aaron. Reb Aaron was just, so we met each other.
And
the Belzer Ruv davened in his base tefillah in Gesher Chaim, which was 5 minutes away. He says, let me walk you over to the Ruv. You have to give shum to the Ruv. So we walked over, and he asked me, so what are you going to do? I said, I want to learn in Mir during the week, and I'll come to Belz on Shabbos. He says, no, you can't do that. If you want to feel bells, you have to be in bells.
the Ruv said or the
No,
Rebbe? Yeah.
You have to be in bells. So I didn't know what to do.
The Belzer salesman.
So I came over there. There's a minig that they put on Tefillin Rebbeinu Tam and Rosh Chodesh before Misif.
Right.
So when the Ruv went out, he had a room in the back in Gesher Chaim where he went to the back and he was folding Tefillin Rebbeinu Tam. So the Lazer Vind let me in that I should be able to give Shurim.
Mm-hmm.
The Ruv was folding up his Tefillin Rebbeinu Tam, winding up Tefillin Rebbeinu Tam. Shalom Aleichem. So I said, what are you going to do? Where are you going to learn? And the Belzer Ruv was asking me where I'm going to learn. So maybe I had that Yiras Akuva. I said, can I come to Belzer Yeshiva? So then he gave me a brucha, he gave me the shis already.
Wow.
Because then I was taka ready. After that year and a half, I already built up with the Levish, with the language, with the culture so much that I was taka ready for Belzer Yeshiva.
Well, you still had a bend-down hat.
But I didn't have the regular hat, as whoever remembers me from then knows very well.
Uh-huh.
So I was then in Belzer Yeshiva, regular Belzer Yeshiva, but I still had this issue with the Shiddichim. And it went on, and Shvat already I saw it didn't work out, so I was ready to go back. And then when I stayed until after Shavuos, I experienced the first Purim by the Ruv, I experienced a Seder Nacht by the Ruv, which the Yingalat were talking about, how many Seder Nacht there were about it, because you can only go out Zbucha, and
wow.
Amazing thing. Once I finished that, once after that Seder Nacht, I felt experientially, I already had it. Like, even if I have to go back to Flatbush to find someone, we'll be able to sort of build ourselves, because I saw everything. I saw all the different Yomim Tovim.
Mm-hmm.
Shortly after Pesach, Mashgiach of the Yeshiva Ktana, who was also involved in my Shiddichim, comes to me and he says, the Belzer Rebbetzin would like to speak to you.
You never saw her?
Belzer Rebbetzin, I saw maybe twice from far when I'm there for 6 months, 8 months. I maybe saw her twice. What's my shaykhs?
Wow.
At that time in the Ruf Shtib and Gesher Chaim said there were 2 levels, 2 floors. One was for the Chassidim coming, one was the private floor. So I went up with the Mashgiach, my first time in the Belzer Rebbe's Shtib.
Wow.
And we went up to the private floor. And at that time, Rav Tzadik, the Ruf's son, was 9 years old. So we went into his room, like a kid's room. And we sit down, we're waiting for the Rebbe. Sure enough, the Rebbe comes in, we stand up, sit down. She starts to say, do you know a Chusid by the Tish, Reb Shmuel Akavi? I said, I don't know the people by the name over here. He stands right near the roof.
You still speak Hebrew at that point? Or you speaking Yiddish already?
I spoke Yiddish als the yeshiva, with the Buchim.
So you trained your Yiddish
How did
in
she
yeshiva?
speak to me? I think that she spoke to me in Yiddish.
You trained your Yiddish in yeshiva?
Because remember, I always heard Yiddish from my mother, my grandmother. Just they didn't speak it to me. I grew up more American, but I had already heard it. So, in any case, So the Rebbetzin says, well, he has a daughter. Okay, I'm thinking to myself, fine, let her speak.
Yeah.
So she says, well, they were just here for Pesach. The daughter was there for Pesach. She went back already, but the Belzer Rebbetzin met the daughter. Zagul, and she learns in a Chassidish seminary. Man, a kid said, I'm just listening. I'll let them talk because I know already it just.
Why?
They
Because
don't
you got burnt?
Because I realized what they're setting up is so far away from who I really am that this is not for me.
So you didn't even think there's a chance.
No. But I did think I'll give them one more chance.
Right.
Once the Rebbetzin finished saying all what she had to say, so I said, where did the girl learn before?
Before the Hasidic seminary.
She says, she's from the best Chassidish seminaries in Manchester. No, not where she's learning now.
Yeah.
Where did she learn before? He says, some school in Flatbush. I said to myself, Flatbush? And then it just hit me. Wow. These people are setting up something that they don't even realize themselves. I'm 6,000 miles away from Flatbush, and they're trying to set me up with a girl from Flatbush that they don't even realize themselves, who's a daughter of a Belzer Chusid. And then I realized, wow, if Hashem could do such a thing, he can make anyone's shidduch. If he can make such a shidduch, and then I was interested already. And the girl Taka came a week and a half before Shvius, and we met. We didn't meet Kerugel by the Chassidim just one time. We met a few times in order to make sure. And we were zoicha to have the vote by the Belzer Ruv on Rosh Chodesh Sivan, on Erev Shabbos, right before Shvius, in the Belzer Rebbe Shtib. We were zoicha to have the vote. That was the last day that we could have had the vote, because the next week after Shabbos it was already Shlosh Mei Hagbula. The Ruv doesn't take any women. The Ruv doesn't see any women. And then afterwards would have been Shvius, and afterwards would have been the Even Apina. It wouldn't have been possible. We had the vote on the last day that was possible in the Belzer Rebbe Shtib. So that gives me chizuk. All these years, all the people are going through difficulty with shidduchim. I know that the Eibishter could do it. I know if he made my shidduch, then he can make anyone's shidduch. So, Baruch Hashem, we met up afterwards to get married quite a few months afterwards. And I would be in Belz Yeshiva. My second year in Belz, Elul, went through again, and then I was learning in Belz. But here's the thing. In Belz, they had a Sholem Meishiv then, who was a Faheder. And there was a push to Fahezach on Blatter. The Ruv Alliance was offering $1 a blot.
Really?
From the Ruv Shtib.
I didn't know it comes from him.
From the Ruv Shtib, there was $1 a blot.
For
They
what?
wanted to give an incentive to learn Bekiyas. So what I did that year when I was a Chusin, I took all the Gemuras that I learned already, Gemur Rashi Toisvis, and I went and fahed by this Sholem Meishiv, who I consider my Rebbe Mivik in Bekiyas. His name was Rabbi Shol Fenster, Zechat Tzadik Livrucha. He was the Sholem Meishiv in Belz. Whoever remembers him, he was nifter a few years ago. And interestingly enough, just about a week and a half ago, so he became a Mechit in Belzer Ruv.
Right. And his brother, the brother of the Chusin, is the Belzer, the famous Belzer for Beli Stefansky's Shia.
So this Rabbi Shul Fenster was a book in Kol HaShas. Not only that, I would say he's my Rebbe because he lived the Shas. Anyone who remembers him, anyone who remembers his Shmizim, who can hear Shmizim,
wow,
he lived the Shas. And any blot that I would come to him, Gemurah Rashi Toises, he'd already be able to ask me right away on the spot a question on this Toises, a question this Rashi, question.
And
so
he would give out the dollars?
No. So if I had by him 5 blot at a time, 10 blot at a time, I would use my whole day to go over the blätter.
Who gave out the dollars?
No. So then at the end of the year, they made a cheshbon who learned the most bekiyas.
Uh-huh.
So I got a portion of what the Ruv was giving through Mechel Fira. He gave me a portion. Anyway, so Baruch Hashem, I was zoicha during that year to fahezach from the time I was a chusin and came to Belz Yeshiva until the Thursday before Shabbos Ofriv. I was zoicha to fahezach of 1,000 blot.
Wow.
Baruch Hashem. So then we got married, Baruch Hashem, and my whole she'ifa was just, to complete Talmud Bavli. So approximately 2.5 years, you were born already, you were a year and a half. Approximately 2.5 years after we were married, I was zoicha to make a siyum on Talmud Bavli.
Wow.
It was probably the first siyum in Beis Medrash HaGudel, because there were no other floors. There was just the 3 bottom floors and the miklatim were ready, and the siyum was in the miklatim. Fenster was there, other me, Zikne Anshe Shlemaini. My
Miklatim in
father-in-law
English-
came in from Chitzloretz.
Miklatim in English is bomb shelters.
Yeah,
The
the
synagogue
shelters
has,
downstairs. And I would say whoever was a bocher at that time or a Ingaman and came to the Siyum, so they remember that Siyum until today.
Yeah. Wow.
Baruch Hashem.
There's footage of it? I
Could-
heard there's footage. I never
Okay.
saw it.
That's a separate Indian to look into
Zaidi has it
afterwards.
somewhere put away.
So Lemase, it was very special. I gave an invitation to the Ruv. The Ruv didn't end up coming, but he came afterwards to our house, special for Lekach and Bronfen, the Kuva
To see him. Wow.
So then afterwards, my she'ifa was just to be Messiah. And, maybe I'll take out a personal note at this moment. It's an opportunity for me to ask Mechila from you.
From me?
Yeah.
Oy vay.
Because what I came to realize over the years is Gula Talmud Shmevede de Masa. Everything we're learning about, it's not only for the tachas of the learning, it's to bring Lidei Masa. What is the Masa of Yiddishkeit? It's about relationships. It is about relationships. You get married, your closest relationship is your spouse. Afterwards, your kids. You need to be a father for them. You need to be there for them. I'm asking you, Mechila, because I know during that first year and a half, you might not remember anything, but probably I wasn't there for you like I should have been because I was focused on learning the dapim.
So, first of all, definitely a moichel. Mechila's apology.
But I would say the years afterwards, I tried to be as best always a father to my children that I could be because I know what it means to have a father. Or to need a father, or to desire a father. I tried to be there.
I think it definitely translates in your hugs. Your hugs are very powerful and tense, and they come often. I can understand where it comes from, and you don't have to apologize to me at all. My journey was my journey, but I did have a challenging time within myself to relate to you, because I looked up at you as someone who is very invested in learning and Avodas Hashem and Hecher Zach. And Hecher Zach means higher spiritual stuff, and not so much down to earth. Not as a friend. I didn't see you as a friend. Today, Baruch Hashem, I'm so glad we have opportunities to learn together.
But that
daily
in later years, I tried to be there for you. I didn't understand everything you were going through because I didn't go through the same system. But
right. So most of what I went through in yeshiva, I didn't want to share with you because I felt like I'm going to be Messiah you. Imagine me telling you, one of the most holy Jews I knew on planet Earth, saying, I got kicked out of yeshiva. I couldn't even imagine how your reaction would be. So I never told you. I got kicked out a lot.
It's okay. I still love you.
I think every time I got kicked out was just misunderstanding. They didn't get me, just like you felt a lot of times.
But I remember one time that you weren't speaking, and I tried to get you to talk because it's important not to hold in those things and to express it at least to someone. You remember I took you on a trip.
Yeah, I think that's a classic of showing how much you cared. You did care a lot, but I didn't know how to share with you since you didn't go through the system and you didn't understand that it's a normal thing in yeshiva to get kicked out. Or I think that's it. But one time I came home from yeshiva Ktana, I was very down. I think it was a Sunday. No, it can be. I think it was a Friday or a Thursday, and I was very, very in my corner, and I didn't speak at all. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know who to say, what to say. And you took me, you tried speaking to me, and I wouldn't say a word. And you mamash, you forced me. You said, "Ich bin dein Tate, and ich heiß dir kommen mit mir. I'm your father, and I'm telling you, you have to come with me." And you took me all the way to the bus, to the central bus. We went all the way to Ramat Gan, which is an hour drive away. And over there we went to Bnei Brak, and from there we took a tender, like a smaller van, to the Park Halaumi Ramat Gan. How would you translate that?
National Park.
The National Park of Ramat Gan, which is an hour and a half away with the whole this. And I still didn't say a word. The whole time I didn't say a word. And you took me on a pedal boat, and you pedaled all the way to the Psak corner into a bush. I remember the bush, and you put in the two pedals into the boat, and you just stared at me. and I broke down and I opened up, and it was a very, very meaningful moment. I think since then you realized how much I need a listening ear, and you started paying people to talk to me weekly, which s- I wouldn't say saved my life because I wouldn't survive otherwise. So it gave me life. I wouldn't have a life without it. So I want to thank you for all those years of being there and caring and paying for all these people. I imagine it was a fortune, probably much more than my wedding or anything else.
I would hug you again, but I don't want to take up so much.
If it would be on camera, Mila, but it sticks out every time. So I'll take the final hug. We'll hug it all out after. But thank you so much. I do feel that you did more than your max as being a father. I did not take as much as I could. I wasn't. I didn't have the cycle. I wasn't clever enough to use the tool that I had. Such a caring father, because I was very confused. I was very confused. Yeah, I could sit here and cry out. That wasn't the plan, but
I just meant to bring out that the parents, if they're in such a situation, they see the child's not talking, it's important to get the child to talk. That's important.
yeah, it was
Even if
one
they're
of the most critical moments, and yeah, those are the moments that kept me together. Baruch Hashem.
Okay, so maybe I'll just finish up my story, just moving forward. After I got married, I was accepted in the Belzeruf's Koilo for Dayunis.
Oh wow!
It's a 5-year program. During that time, I received smicha from Belzer Bezdin in Eretz Yisroel, Baruch Hashem. At that time, while I was learning the haluchas, we were also trying to go vater in the Gemura, Medisim, also learning Chassidish Sfurim. Afterwards, after I finished 5 years, I went back to the roof. Should be well, and he said that I should go to the Belz about Shuvi Yeshiva to teach at Torah Ve'Mina. So I went to Torah Ve'Mina. Eventually, I became a Rosh Kollel over there. Eventually, I saw that the Bali Tshuva from Eretz Yisroel are a little different than the English-speaking Bali Tshuva. They're more, first of all, they have an advantage because they know Hebrew already, so they go quicker, but it's different. So I felt I could do more. I asked from the Ruv Rishis if I could go into English-speaking Kiev. He gave me the Shis. Eventually, I became a Shola Maishiv at Shiv's Esha Torah in the Altstut. Afterwards, they took us, there's what's called a mandatory in Shabbos. One Shabbos every month where all the students of the yeshiva have to remain in the yeshiva, and they wanted to make a matzah, they wanted to make it more rochnius. So our family was the family who went in once a month for almost 2.5 years to be the in family for Esha Torah.
We went to the old city for a full-fledged Shabbos. They gave us every time a different apartment, which looked like 200 years old. I mean, inside was renovated, but it was with the tall ceiling, and it was beautiful. It was a beautiful time. I used to run around with my brother in the streets. To this day, I love being in the old city, and that was a good outlet for me. It was away from my friends, away from the pressure. It was amazing. It was amazing.
And Baruch Hashem, there are Talmidim today from Eish, from those times, who still remember the Shabbosis. At some point, I was able to open my own yeshiva for Bali Tshuva to give them a little bit of what I experienced with Tzaddik Chassidus, called Lev Yisrael. It lasted for about 7 years because in 2008, when there was a recession, it was almost impossible to raise money for the yeshiva. Baruch Hashem, that's part of a lot of the nachas that I have today. Talmidim built families, become part of actual communities in Klal Yisrael. Successfully, Baruch Hashem. It gives me tremendous nachas. Then afterwards, after Lev Yisrael, it was a little hard time because I didn't have the yeshiva. Baruch Hashem was able to receive a stelle here in Flatbush, and I brought the entire family, 2011 to 2013, almost 2.5 years. We were in Flatbush in the stelle. Baruch Hashem, the shield grew very quickly, but at the same time, the Ingalat, who are here, are basically here for just a couple of years, and then they can't afford a house, so they move out of the neighborhood. The shield didn't last. I was also vice principal of girls' school here in Flatbush during that time, Oiz Vahuda, and it was a tremendous experience. But eventually we took the entire family back to Eretz Yisrael. I think when we were here in America, you were already married and you were living here already.
Yes, and it was a challenging time. I
Mhm.
was still in that factory. For people who saw my other interviews, I was still in that factory that wasn't doing good with me. And so I remember the whole thing as a dark blur.
Mm.
So I didn't get to enjoy you guys here.
So from my side, afterwards, we took the family back to Eretz Yisrael. It was a sort of very difficult time for me because, again, I'd already had a yeshiva. I already had a stelle. Now I came back, so I became, Baruch Hashem, a Shalom Moshe for Hidabrut, a big Kiva organization. It's Israel to answer questions and answers on emails. And I put myself into writing Sfurim. Baruch Hashem. And today, Baruch Hashem, I lead a program called Life About Presentations to give over these basic hashkufas of Yiddishkeit to English-speaking students, gap year students, and Baruch Hashem.
So that's a website?
So it actually is a website today.
Okay.
It's also a presentation, a physical presentation. And Baruch Hashem, it's what I call the forgotten hashkufas. It's not of a specific group. It's what we all agreed to. But it's what it says in Sfurim HaKadoshim that's not emphasized today.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's not emphasized today, people don't really know about it.
Mm-hmm.
And if they would know about it, literally it's life-changing.
Wow.
So that's my goal, to give over. But I do want to share some of the Sfurim that I was able, if I can take out a minute.
Yeah, so we have a
some of
few
the
over
Sfurim.
here.
This is Sefer Mishnah Berurah Mevirot that was written specifically because we had Talmidim who were Bali Tshuva. They needed to know the halacha right away. If you don't know the halachas right away, it's very hard to keep, especially Hilchos Shabbos.
So you
So
sifted.
I started to take out the halachas that are necessary to know. If a person learns Mishnah Berurah Seder, it could take like 2 years.
Right.
They needed to know it. So we took out each time the halachas for Mishnah Berurah that a person must know, almost like an instruction booklet. This is what you have to do, one thing after another.
You left out all the extra that are not nagaya to the daily life that we live
Exactly.
today, and you put in only the halachas that we have to know to be kosher Eden today.
And that became an entire series. So that's right now a campaign in Eretz Yisrael in America to sell that sefer. As I mentioned before, I did write a sefer about marriage, tips on shulam bayis,
Marriage and me.
and how to understand each other, how to build to a real connection. From my experience, there is one person who told me that it was the best sefer in shulam bayis that they've read.
Maybe
So
get
it has-
the mic closer.
It has value to it. It has advantage. It's available today in Judaica Corner in Borough Park. And the main two sfurim that I would say that Zohar to give out are in Hashkufa. It's a combination of what I've been looking for in Hashkufa, the sources inside from Sfurim HaKadoshim. What is the Hashkufa that we base Yiddishkeit on? The first one is called It's All for the Good. Second one is called Reaching Life's Goal in This World, distributed by Z. Berman Books. And I would highly suggest whoever can read these two Sfarim, it's hashkafas that are life-changing, or an alternative, you can go on the website, just write out the words Life About Presentations, lifeaboutpresentations.com. Right there, you have audio explained each hashkufa. You can actually see it in the sefer on the site. You can listen to it quickly, you can listen to it more slowly. And if you can get those hashkufas, that's really a tremendous accomplishment for me.
Beautiful. So that you feel is bringing everything together, all the experiences together.
Yeah, if I could give that over, if you ask me what would be my dream is if people could get these hashkufas that, like I said, you say, how does the world look today? You said at the beginning, it looks quite discombobulated. You know what that word means.
I'm going to tell the story of the discombobulated, okay? Here's the story. 2 weeks ago, there was a noise in the daf from Rabbi Stefansky, Shchivmera, and he was talking about the person being combobulated
before he passes away.
If he can make a kinyan or not, if he can give away his belongings or not. And Reb Nachman Seltzer says right away, discombobulated, and it's a whole thing, discombobulated. Then last Thursday, what's today? Sunday. Last Thursday, I go into a special chayda that helps kids that are not doing as well as the other kids. So they have a downgraded version of a chayda, very, very personal, like 6 kids in a class, something special. And there's a very, very tall kid in that chayda, like he's taller than me. He's still a kid. And every time I come close with the camera, he ducks. He like puts his hand on his head and he ducks. So I'm like, okay, I don't want to bother him too much. And then at some point at the end of the day, I stand next to him in the class because I'm trying to get a wide shot. And he's ducking and he tells me, I'm visioned, so I can't take pictures. Chaz v'shulim. So I say, yeah, sure, no problem. I won't take any pictures. He says, erase every picture you see me, erase it. I said, sure, we'll see, we'll erase it. What should I tell him? And then there's the word of the week. And he gets his turn to go up to put the, And he puts, nonetheless, discombobulated. It takes him 2 minutes to spell discombobulated on the screen. So right away, I know for sure that one of his family is watching Rebbe Stefanski. That's where it starts. Then the teacher says, what is the definition of the word? He says, cause of confusion. I think that's what it was. So the teacher says, where did you find it? He says, on Google. So I'm like, no pictures. How do you say that in English? Dot. We can go on for days speaking. It's
good that we're related.
it's a schiz for me to sit together with you and speak. Today I enjoyed very much. And I'm sorry for myself that a lot of years I did not appreciate, utilize. I didn't have the cycle. And it's funny that you said when you are a father yourself, you realize, right? Until I was not a father myself, I didn't appreciate as much. And today I see my kids, Baruch Hashem, yeah, give me something to drink, give me something to eat. And I'm like, where's the please? Where's the thank you? It happens. And I'm thinking about myself. I also never appreciated it. It was a given. What do you mean? You're my father, you're my mom, you work for me. And it's not true. There's a lot of heart and soul and energy and time and money and effort and sleepless nights that goes into kids. So only now I'm starting to learn to appreciate much more my father and mother. So I want to apologize for not appreciating enough, not using the time enough, and not giving chashivas. So how do you say chashivas in English? Importance for our relationship in the past as much. Baruch Hashem, we have a chavrisa now in the morning. Baruch Hashem, it should go better and better and grow. And so we can go on for weeks. But the viewer at some point is going to start looking at his watch. Maybe he's already looking. Maybe he already left. But for those who are still here, maybe if you have a final message of what a person should take away with him from this podcast, from this ich will es riefen heilige moments, but from this meaningful time, what should he take with him for his life that he can go and utilize from today on? Besides going on the site and getting the books, what is something that you think is most important? If you can look at that camera.
Very important, as you mentioned before. How do I feel today? I feel the world is very confused. And we are the ones that are supposed to give over a message to the world. And the longer we let it be confused, and the longer we don't know the message ourselves, it just gets worse and worse. So what I would love to see is that the Yidden, the Jewish people, get the message of what's so special about what they're doing. If you ask me what the biggest Yetzer Hara in the world is today, it's superficiality. The attention span is down to 8 seconds. That means that a person can't look at one thing and remain focused for more than 8 seconds. The whole world is pushing towards superficiality, and it's coming to Yiddishkeit. Because now we view ourselves. How does my shtrama look? How does my externals look? This has nothing to do really with the core of Yiddishkeit. The core of Yiddishkeit is your relationship with Hashem. And so therefore, the more we can get a little deeper, the more we can go in to understand what really the message of what we're living is, the more we'll be able to become those messengers to the entire world. May Hashem help. And each person be able to get the deeper message. May be able to feel what a person feels naturally when he has the depth of Yiddishkeit. He's willing to be moist nefesh for it. When you can be moist nefesh, that's what your kids will pick up on. That will be transferable generationally. We'll be able to carry on this Yiddish lifestyle that our forefathers, our uvas, gave their lives in order to give to us, that it should continue to Mashiach Tzatan. Now it's being threatened. If all we have is something superficial, it doesn't last. And that's what we're seeing. Try and get the message a little deeper, and we should all be able to be that. Be those examples to the world, role models for what a person can be who's a heilige folk. Not heilig in the sense we're in Himmel, we're Himmel mentioned. We're down to earth, but we're living a little deeper lifestyle. And through our life itself, we give over the message. And may everyone come to know, like we know is the ultimate goal, the godless, the Metzias, the presence of Hashem in this world. Be able to know the Gitzkeit from Hashem. He created the world in order to give good to every single being. be able to know the benevolence of Hashem, to be able to know that Hashem is here and part of our lives. And the ganze Welt should know that. What sooner? And then we'll be zoichet, no question, to be as Mashiach Tzidkenu.